And we knew we were going to have to make some tough decisions in order to set this thing up for the future, and we've talked a decent amount about it, man. I want to be part of exactly that, and it's just not, and we talked about it this morning, not just sneaking into the playoffs, but setting this up in a way where we have some really good players, where you show up every day and you're expecting to win. You'll lose from time to time, but you show up every day knowing exactly how to take care of business, and the players have that buy-in. So we're building towards that, and these are tough decisions that allow you to do that quicker.
That is what it sounded like yesterday after the game as the Cardinals get shut out once again. That's probably going to be the only reference that we make to the Cardinals' loss last night against the Marlins. Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, it's deadline day here on BK and Ferrario. Alex, the Cardinals made a couple of moves last night. They were... Well, Helsley was, I guess, relatively reasonable hour. Steven Matz was at midnight. He gets moved to the Boston Red Sox. So the Cardinals make two moves. We're expecting more today. We'll certainly keep you apprised if we hear anything on any of that. Helsley moved, and the response, I would say, was underwhelmed, by and large, by most Cardinals fans. We could talk about whether or not that was justified, but they move him for Jesus Baez. That was the top prospect. That was the prize that they got in this deal. He is a shortstop by trade. Seems like he will likely land at third base, maybe somewhere else later on. They also got Nate. I'm definitely mispronouncing his last name. Nate Dohm, I believe. D-O-H-M. He's a righty, big power arm, former third-round pick, big fastball. Cardinals seem to like him in that draft. They now like him as a part of their minor league system. They also get a former 19th, 20th round prospect pitching option for them. Probably a reliever long-term. Seems like he's kind of an under-the-radar, sneaky, interesting prospect as well. Reminds me, T-Bone, a little bit of, if you remember the Jack Flaherty trade, they got Zach Showalter as this guy's really far away but might be interesting kind of an arm. He has become a pretty compelling bullpen prospect for the Cardinals now, and that's seemingly what this guy's going to be for them as well. So that's the return. No top 100 prospects right now in that deal, Alex, but Jesus Baez came into this season as a top 100 prospect according to Baseball America, has dropped on that list so far this season. And I can only speak for myself, my response to this return was, seems about right. I don't know that you were going to get anything more than this. I like that they targeted lower level prospects, because when you have guys that are further away, the range of outcomes is wider, which can be both good and bad. I don't know if any of these guys will ever reach the big leagues. I also think there's a chance they got somebody that's pretty damn good in this trade. Jesus Baez might be a star. He's like 5'10", 200 and some odd pounds. He's a big kid, but shorter, and seems to have a lot of power in his bat. All right, I can dream on that. He might never work out. He chases a lot, apparently, like some swing and miss stuff there for him. And he's 20 years old at high A. He may never reach the big league level. But if he does, there's tools here to really work with. So cool, I'm good with that. The power arm they got in Nate Dohm. He's at high A. He's 22 years old, 6'4", 210 pounds. Big arm. All right, I can dream on that. Alex, what the Cardinals have done in the past is they'll get these guys that are on the cusp of being big leaguers. Cesar Prieto, right? Sim Robersa, Drew Rom. There's nothing to dream on. These are easily projectable, might get to the big league level and become like solid role players. But the possibility of them becoming anything more than that, extremely limited. So I liked the return yesterday. What was your reaction?
I mean, I was optimistic with it. Like I saw the name, and then you look at the stats and you see where he's at, you see the age, you see the write-ups on it, and it's like, hey, they took a shot. And it's different because, like, for the last however many years, the Cardinals are doing what you mentioned, where they're going for AAA guys. They're going for guys that are on the cusp of being major leaguers. But you look at it and you're like, yeah, but is it going to be anything for this team? Now, although it's underwhelming for people, at least it's something to dream on. It's an A-ball, 20-year-old player with international ties that, hey, Chaim Bloom has been the one that said, like, he's really good in that market. So maybe they strike gold on this one. Maybe it doesn't pan out to much, but I think the reason people were so underwhelmed, and I'm not trying to put words in people's mouths, I think the reason people were so underwhelmed was because it was a little bit of outlandish dreaming, thinking that like, oh, you were going to get a third best prospect in somebody's team's pool, or you saw the Duran trade and you're like, oh, well, you should be able to get that. Helsley's a better player than Duran. You forget that there's control attached to Duran. Helsley is a rental, and typically rentals don't go for as much as you would hope for. The other part into this one, why I think people were so underwhelmed, is I think there was just a lot of hatred towards John Mozeliak, that no matter what the return was going to look like, there was going to be disappointment because it's Ryan Helsley, it's a top arm on the market, and you weren't going to get the type of prospect return that you had hoped for. Would you have liked to get what the Padres just gave away to go get Mason Miller? Yeah, absolutely.
That would have been so much better.
But welcome to living in an outlandish world. This is the return, and we talked about this leading up to the deadline for months. This is what happens when you trade rentals, but it's a shot in the dark. You're playing craps with this one. And guess what, man? You might have a great hand. You might have something that turns into a star 3-4 years from now. But at least it's not a AAA prospect that you look at and you be like, yeah, but this is what he is at AAA. What more can he give?
I'm a Royals fan. Say that up front, right? I've seen a lot of sells at the deadline. A lot of them. Selling sucks. Because more often than not, you're underwhelmed with the return. You're like, man, my guy rocks. My guy that my team is selling is so freaking good at baseball. And Ryan Helsley is really good at baseball. Like the Mets, they did great yesterday at the deadline. Got Rogers, who's a really good arm. Helsley, really good arm. You're adding that to Diaz, who's already an excellent closer for them. Dude, that bullpen looks awesome. They already have a good starting staff. Good for them. And they didn't give up guys that are really going to change their future. So I think the Mets had a fantastic day yesterday. And if I'm a Mets fan, I'm thrilled by what they did. If I'm a Cardinals fan, and I'm glad you gave that perspective, Alex, because I was a little surprised. I didn't really know what to make of the reaction yesterday. I guess I wasn't surprised because you're right. Like anything they do, they get a little bit of backlash on. I was a little surprised, though, by Keith Law said, man, this is a really bad return for the Cardinals. I saw somebody else say that a rival executive said they're pretty underwhelmed by the return that the Cardinals got. There were 0 top 100 prospects traded at the entire deadline a year ago. 0. We did this yesterday where over the last 5 years, the number of top 100 prospects that have been traded at the deadline has gone down year by year by year. Now, this year is a little bit different because you're seeing controllable players that are sold at the deadline. Mason Miller was just traded to the San Diego Padres and got a freaking haul. A top 5 prospect in all of Major League Baseball was traded for Mason Miller, a reliever. That never happens. Alex, who'd you say was the last guy that was a top 5 prospect that was traded?
Eloy Jimenez and Gleyber Torres.
That was in 2016, 2017?
Yep.
It's been almost a decade since we've seen a move like that. That's for a reliever. That's nuts. Good for the A's, I guess.
Yeah.
But, hey, man, AJ Preller is a crazy man.
You had 4 years of control for a guy who probably is going to be a starter for them, like you pointed out.
Exactly.
There was upside there.
Duran gets traded to the Phillies. He has, I think, 2 more years after this season, if I'm not mistaken, of club control for Philadelphia. They trade a top 100 prospect in that deal as well. All right, yeah, that makes sense. If Ryan Helsley was dealt in 2023, you could have had a somewhat similar return to that. They chose not to do it. And now here we are today. I don't think they were getting that in the offseason.
No.
That's not the kind of return you get for Ryan Helsley with 1 year of control. That's 3+. So, yeah, I thought it was a fine night for the Cardinals. In fact, I was heartened by the returns that they got.
Here's the other thing, too. We were glowing after the draft because the Cardinals were going for upside. They weren't going for the same things that they always draft of pitch to contact, where you hit the strike zone well, no real swing and miss stuff. This is kind of the same. You were going for upside here. You're going for upside of a 20-year-old who showcases his power. T-Bone, you pointed it out hey, he plays third base. That could be the guy that takes over for Arenado a few years down the road. They're going for upside there. You've got swing and miss stuff for the 2 pitchers that you got return on in this one. Is it ideal? Absolutely not. You were hoping for more. But I would much rather the team go for upside than just another scrappy infielder who can just hit for contact and get on base really well.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. I do want to hear from you guys today via the mic drop feature on the 101 ESPN app. That's the Scott Lee Heating mic drop feature over there. What did you think of the return yesterday that was announced for the St. Louis Cardinals as they traded traded both Ryan Helsley and Steven Matz. T-Bone, what was your perspective as you saw the returns come in late last night?
Yeah, I didn't mind the return. Like, sure, I think maybe you could have maybe seeked out for maybe more of your top end prospect in return for Helsley doesn't have as many warts. Like the stuff you're reading on this kid of like, hey, like came into spring training kind of out of shape. Not what you really want on like your best piece in your returns from yesterday. But like he's got pretty good power. He's still very young. Like hopefully everything clicks for him. The arms I find intriguing because they have swing and miss stuff and they're far away to where maybe they kind of work on their walk issues and then you're able to really fine tune their stuff. I thought it was a fine return. I wouldn't say it was bad. I wouldn't say it was great. The guy was a fringe top 100 prospect Baez that they got. So, like, I think that's what you expected from the Cardinals to get in these kind of returns. And I'm expecting kind of the same thing in the Maton return today when they move him. It's not going to be anything sexy. It's probably going to be a piece you look at and go, does he really have a future in St. Louis? That's the trade deadline. Like, as long as two of these pieces at the deadline become something for the Cardinals, whether that is something used to be traded away or something that works at the major league level, then that would be a success for them.
Between 2001 and 2017, according to Baseball America, a total of 675 prospects were dealt at the non-waiver trade deadline. So this deadline that we're talking about right now. Of those 675 prospects, 143 of them went on to have a consequential Major League Baseball career, defined by the majority of them having at least 2 seasons in the majors and posting a positive wins above replacement. That means that roughly 20% of all prospects moved at the deadline, or just over 1 in 5, had a multiple-year Major League career. This is what you get. You hope for some amount of upside, and I think what the Cardinals did here, and I like it, they aimed for that potential of having something more meaningful than just getting the next version of Luken Baker or the next version of Juan Yepes or the next version of some guy that comes in, has a 1 to 2 year stint, and then becomes a bench player for the next 5 years in the major leagues. That is what the Cardinals have been aiming for. They're looking for something more now. I prefer that. I saw on the text line we had somebody that said, guys, I would have liked to have seen them have something more than an A-ball player come in return. There are a few different routes that you can take at the deadline. If you're selling somebody like Ryan Helsley, you can either aim for players that are close. And that's what they did with Steven Matz, by the way. They got a first baseman and this Blaze Jordan kid who sounds like a right-handed version of Alec Burleson, honestly.
Yeah.
It's like a platoon bat that mashes lefties.
Hell
His
yeah.
numbers against lefties are insane. And he reaches for everything. Chase rate is really high, but he makes contact with everything. Contact rate is really high. Has a little bit of pop, has some serious pop, actually. I'm underselling that. So we'll see what he becomes, but it sounds like that's kind of your next Luken Baker for the big league team. That's one route you can go. A guy that's really close to the majors, on the 40-man very soon. He'll have to be added this offseason. The other route that you can go is what they did with the Helsley return, which is guys that are further away, and that means that the projection is harder to see. They're young. They could go in a number of different directions where in one scenario, hey, everything clicks for them, and hey, they might become the next Randy Rosarena, where they're a stud at the big league level. The other direction that it could go, is they fizzle out. They had some prospect status previously, and now they're just nothing more than a double-A player. And you become the next version of like a Chase Davis, where it fizzles out in your system. I don't know which direction this is going to go. I prefer, though, betting on young upside talent as opposed to what they had done in the 2023 deadline, which is much more of the really close to the major leagues. As many of you guys please help us next year as we could possibly get. That also has its flaws where you have no real upside there.
Hey, look at it this way. Rafael Devers, when he was in high A ball in Boston system, same age as Jesus Baez, had the same OPS and the same amount of home runs.
We don't know what Baez is going to be.
Same size frame, too. 6 foot, 5'11", stocky, short.
He
Devers
seems to be a guy that has a lot of people that believe in him, and he seems to be a guy that have a lot of people that don't believe in him at all. And if you read the Keith Law write-up over on The Athletic, not a believer. Does not like Baez. And I think ultimately your opinion on the return for Helsley will be based upon who the prized prospect is in return for that.
I think
if you like him, you probably like the return.
I think we need Jim Bowden's take, because typically when he says something about the Cardinals, he's always right. So text Jim and ask him.
There goes BK. Assumptions galore on what the kid is, comparing him to Luken Baker of the world, who's nothing like this kid. Stay off Twitter, bro.
Did you put it on Twitter, bro?
I mean,
What the hell, brah?
Actually,
I guess I need to be more clear.
better numbers than
Lucan Baker's role for the Cardinals was supposed to be a right-handed bat that provides thump and can start against left-handed pitchers. That is what I would assume Blaze Jordan will likely be for the Cardinals whenever he reaches the big league level. Could he be more than that? That'd be great. Is he likely to be more than that? I don't know. Probably not. But that is what I was saying there. That's
Easy,
it. Nothing
bro.
more, nothing less.
Easy, bro.
He's Alex with
Chill with
T-Bone
the
on
comps,
BK.
bro.
If you guys want to get involved in the show, you can do so. YouTube.com/101 ESPN STL is one place where you can go. You can check us out on Twitter at BK Sports Talk, at Ferrario 101 ESPN, at T-Bone 101 ESPN, and get your Scott Lee Heating mic drops in on the 101 ESPN app today as well. Is this going to be it? We saw Helsley traded. We saw Match traded. It sure seems like we are likely to see a Phil Maton deal at some points today as well. Are they going to move anything beyond those 3 rental relievers? We'll talk about that next here on 101 ESPN. Steven Matt's gone.
Bruh!
Phil Maton probably gone.
Bruh!
Anybody else going to be joining them with Alex and T-Bone on BK? You got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN.
Better be JoJo Romero.
This comes from Katie Wu over at The Athletic. After trading Ryan Helsley and Steven Matz on Wednesday, the Cardinals expect to complete their trifecta of reliever deals before the deadline this evening. Several teams are competing for Phil Maton's services. Quote, it's not a matter of if Maton goes, it's a matter of when, a team source told Katie Wu Thursday morning. All right, so it seems very likely that Maton will be dealt, Alex. That was the expectation. I think the over-under on Cardinals trades this year at the deadline, or at least players traded, was 3.5. Because the three relievers seemed like an obvious, these guys have to go. Every GM in baseball would have made those moves. And then it becomes a question of what more are you willing or able to accomplish? Alex, do you think we will see more? Will Nolan Arenado be available? Will we see Jojo Romero go out the door? Will they listen on controllable players? Where do you see them going from here at 5:01 p.m. today?
I think it's going to be Maton, and then that's it.
Okay.
And to me, that's disappointing. I think that's a little malpractice because Jojo Romero should be traded. And it's not because I hate Jojo Romero. It's because look at what the return is for controllable arms right now on the deadline. Now, he's not Duran. He's not Mason Miller. But Jojo Romero is a high-leverage left-handed reliever who can get lefties out. That is a very crucial player to have on a team if you want to make a push for a World Series. And you got him for the rest of this year and next year at a controllable cost. I don't know why you wouldn't trade that. Sure, you want to keep your arms that could help you next year in the bullpen. The Cardinals don't seem to be a team that's planning to compete next year. They've got a lot of younger arms that I would much rather see in high leverage roles to see how they can handle it rather than Jojo Romero. Now, I know you need those safety nets of guys who can do it so you don't put younger guys and have them break, but man, for what the cost is right now for teams that want controllable arms, I would absolutely be looking at and seeing what I can get for Jojo Romero on this market. And it would make sense to trade him because you might get a pretty decent return back for that.
I think they have to. I don't know what is the rationale for not trading Jojo today?
You need somebody with experience in the back end of your bullpen.
Yeah, but
why?
Okay.
I mean, again, I
You got
understand.
2 months left in the season, man. If you needed 5 months, I get that. And I'm not
No,
blaming
I know.
you, Alex. We're in agreement on this. But like, if I was talking to the Cardinals, I would say, dude, you guys have John King for that. He's a veteran at this point in time, right? Like he's out there. He's a veteran. You have a bunch of veterans on your starting staff as well. If you are prioritizing leadership over the return that you could get for somebody like Jojo Romero, and I'm not sure that's the case, but if that's in this scenario, I would say that's crazy.
Yeah.
That is nuts, man.
And
this is a seller's market. You got to capitalize.
Again, if I play devil's advocate, I can understand the other side. Like, you need somebody who has experience because you got a lot of inexperience and you don't want those players to break, lose confidence. But, man, that's part of the role right now. Like, you're in the real runway part of the season of putting guys into positions to find out if you can handle it next year. Riley O'Brien, Kyle Leahy, bring back Fernand. Like, put these guys in positions now where it's like, who are you for our roster? I just think with what teams are paying right now, to look at a Jojo Romero and say, hey, man, I think we need to see what we can get for this type of player because teams are paying at a hefty price for controllable arms. I think it's malpractice not to do that if you're the Cardinals.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. And the other thing, too, is JoJo's a free agent at the end of next year. Do you really believe, I mean, based on the way that they're operating and the breadcrumbs of, hey, they may be cutting payroll next year again, it's hard for us to envision how they're getting better. So do you really think you need Jojo Romero going into next season as well? And if the answer to that is no, then you're probably planning on selling him at next year's deadline, but you'd get less because at that point he would be a rental. So I don't understand what the rationale would be as to holding on to Jojo Romero. And maybe the answer is just, hey, we didn't get the offer that we liked, and that's fair. But they should seriously be considering listening on him. I think they need to be listening on some of their position players as well.
We'll get to that here in a minute.
But I think I'm with you guys. I think Maton is a guy that's gone today, and then JoJo should be one that they listen on. I think those two guys, they should be trading it before 5 o'clock today.
This bullpen isn't that bad, even without JoJo. And like it's not great. It's not a contender's bullpen, but you're not a contender, so that's fine. Granillo, Graceffo, Fernandez, Leahy, O'Brien, Swanson, Roycroft. That's 7 guys that I just mentioned. I feel fine about at least 6 of them. And then Roycroft is a bit of a wild card, but he's got the velo. We've seen it play up here before. Let's find out what he is. And then you add in Munoz to that. Cool. Yeah. I'm good with it. You've had worse bullpens than that when you were trying to contend. So the fact that you could potentially have that right now and you're not in contention, whatever, man. And yes, you are lacking a lefty reliever in that group. Okay, go buy one this offseason for $2 million. You can get these guys. Like, hell, trade for one at the deadline who's not very good. Get the next version of John King. You can find those. They're a dime a dozen. Yeah. We've seen the Cardinals have 100 of those over the years. So I'm not worried about the fact that you're lacking a lefty reliever because you're not in contention. JoJo is the exact kind of piece that I think the Cardinals should be prioritizing in deals today. On the position player side of things, and by the way, we do want to hear from you. Mic Drop feature is on the 101 ESPN app. We'll listen to some of your reaction throughout the day today. On the position player side of things, T-Bone, you mentioned potentially listening on the controllable guys. Bob Nightingale tweeted this out. The Cardinals, who are wide open for business, have several teams, including the Astros and Phillies, expressing interest in the likes of Lars Nootbaar, Alec Burleson, and Brendan Donovan. Derek Gould posted this in his story today on the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. Quote, in the last few days, the Cardinals had at least one team contact them to explore what a deal would look like for Lars Nootbaar. And the Cardinals, according to another source, recently told teams that they would be open to discussions about Nolan Gorman and what it would take to get their attention. He added that multiple teams have contacted the Cardinals with interest in Brendan Donovan, but how strong the Cardinals' appetite for such a trade is not clear. That all coming from Derek Gould of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. Where do you guys see this market going for their controllable position players, Alex? Because to me, I'd be calling that lunatic AJ Preller right now.
Oh, I know where you're going with that.
You guys really wanted Steven Kwan, and apparently the Guardians were asking for the prospects that went to the A's for Mason Miller. We don't need that. but
we'll go a step down off of that, if that's all right.
We'll go with a top 100 prospect for Lars Nootbaar. How you feeling, Prowler? And Prowler, that crazy ass would be like,
hell yes.
Let's ride. We want to beat the Dodgers. We're slaying that dragon, big boy.
I mean, look, where I see this going, I think the Cardinals should be listening on everything. I know it's not normal to trade controllable players like this at the deadline. It's more of an offseason move. But you kind of have to start picking through this glut of position players. You've got Gorman now on the rehab stint. You've got Nootbaar on the rehab stint. You've got Donovan, who's been a all-star this season. Like, it's time to start looking at this roster and saying, what could we get for these guys? They have to have an idea on some of these players, how they fit into their team moving forward. And, of course, you start with Nolan Arenado. Is this going to be realistic? Can we move him? Because that opens up more playing opportunities. And if you can't, then, yeah, I think I would be calling teams on Lars Nootbaar. I'd be calling teams on Nolan Gorman. I'd be checking in on these teams that want Brendan Donovan. Be like, how bad you want Brendan Donovan? I know nobody wants to trade them, but man, if you're telling me that a team's willing to offer up the number 3 overall prospect in baseball for him, then let's have a conversation, because that moves the needles towards what you're trying to accomplish. So all of these guys that have control, I'm starting to listen now, and it's going to carry me over into the offseason.
Dude, the returns that we're seeing for controllable players, hey, you want to listen on JoJo Romero? Not only should you, I would absolutely do that. I would sell him today. He's got to be gone by 5 o'clock. Not because I hate JoJo Romero, but because, dude, there's the return. Like, you might be able to get similar return for Romero that you got on Ryan Helsley. I've got to listen on that, man. What we just talked about, right? The possibility of you getting a major league player out of your deals at the deadline are about 20%. If I get 3 players for Ryan Helsley and I get another 3 players for JoJo Romero and I got 1 player for Steven Matz, let's say they get 2 players for Phil Maton, I've got like 10 players in return. For those 4 relievers,
not enough 40-man roster spots for all that.
2 of those guys might become major leaguers down the road. I've increased my odds on producing some kind of a major league, hopefully arm. That's a huge deal if you can get that at the deadline. So, yeah, I'm just increasing my odds of maximizing my return at this year's deadline, and I would do the exact same thing on the position player side of things. I don't need to urgently move any of these guys. Nootbaar would be the one that I'm most willing to listen on. This is the exact kind of move that they've typically made. Hey, outfielder coming back from an injury at the trade deadline. Let's sell him for some kind of an asset. Previously, major league players. Now, minor leaguers. Previously, that was what they did with Bader. They did that with Tommy Edman last year. Now, potentially, you could do it again with Lars Nootbaar. That would be the direction that I would try to go. And again, I would be calling San Diego specifically. You guys are desperate. You really see, obviously, an opening for yourselves here. This is a controllable piece. He's cost-controlled, which you need. You need to save a little bit of money. What are we willing to do here, AJ? And keep throwing that line into the pond. Keep throwing that line into the pond. Keep annoying him until you get to 450 and then really press to see what exactly you can get from AJ Preller.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think you listen on every piece that's controllable. I don't think this team has an untouchable on this roster. And based on what we're seeing on the controllable pieces that are getting so much in return, I think you have to listen to them. I think you have to look at Lars Nootbaar. Alec Burleson was a name I think Bob Nightingale mentioned in his tweet. Brendan Donovan's a name that I think you listen to. Like, Gorman, okay, sure, but like you're not going to get much, I would think, for Nolan Gorman. He's a little bit of a distressed asset at this point. I think you have to listen to these pieces because not only does it help you for the future, it also kind of clears things up for the final 2 months of this season,
Totally.
while you're also still trying to figure out answers. Because I think they have a good idea of what they have on the major league roster, it becomes a lot easier to play Jordan Walker every day if you take an outfielder out of the equation. It becomes a lot easier to find at-bats for whether it be Nolan Gorman if you traded Brendan Donovan, if you still wanted to make that a goal for you, or Thomas Sajaci, or Weatherholt potentially in September if you decide to go the route of a potential September call-up for a guy that is crushing the baseball down in AAA. You have this logjam. You don't need to wait to the offseason to accomplish this. You can start accomplishing one or two of these pieces right now at this year's Major League Baseball trade deadline.
Coming up in about 15 minutes, we're going to get into questions and answers. 314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line. We'll get to some of your questions there. We're going to have Geoff Pontes of Baseball America. He joined us a couple of weeks ago following the draft to talk about what the Cardinals were able to do there. We are going to talk to him coming up at 12:05 today. We're going to bump him to 12:05. He got called into a meeting with Baseball America. They're doing a live stream right now because the number 3 prospect in baseball was just traded by the San Diego Padres, AJ Preller. That guy's nuts. So we're going to talk to him coming up at 12.
We got a former top 100 prospect. What the hell?
Yeah.
We'll talk to Geoff at 12:05 today. Do want to hear from you. We're going to get your reaction on what the Cardinals were able to get in return for Ryan Helsley and Steven Matz, what you expect them to do the rest of the day today. And I want to get Alex and T-Bone's thoughts on whether or not Nolan Arenado will be a Cardinal by the end of the day today. All of that coming up next here on 101 ESPN.
Tanner Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Cardinals last night fell to the Miami Marlins 2-0, and today is the Major League Baseball trade deadline. As the Cardinals are off, they head to San Diego for a 3-game set starting tomorrow night. And of course, last night the St. Louis Cardinals traded Ryan Helsley to the New York Mets in exchange for 3 prospects, and they also sent Steven Matz to the Boston Red Sox for a high AAA prospect. We'll keep you updated on the Major League Baseball trade deadline throughout the day today here on 101 ESPN. And tonight, live edition of the Red Bird Report with myself and Brandon Kiley as we break down all the moves that the St. Louis Cardinals make today. This Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex, CMLondoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Alex and T-Bone on BK. We do want to hear from you. The mic drop feature is on the 101 ESPN app. What was your reaction to the return that the Cardinals were able to get yesterday in their deadline deals for Ryan Helsley and for Steven Matz? Got a AAA player for Steven Matz. I do love that his name is Blaze Jordan.
Did it remind you of the movie Dodgeball?
It honestly just immediately reminded me of Mason Wynn, whose middle name is Blaze. So they now have 2 players on the soon. We'll have 2 players on the Major League roster that either have the middle name or the first name of Blaze.
They got 2 Baez's in their minor league system now.
I mean, they're just collecting them.
They should go see if Javi Baez is available.
Oh, good call.
Just
I
the
don't
Baez
think
trio.
that the Tigers are going to trade him, but maybe.
Maybe. You can tell them, hey, man, we got 2 other Baez's. Why not one more?
You don't know until you ask, right?
It's true. Baez? What's
What
the
just
plural
happened?
for Baez?
I don't think that's a thing.
Baez.
Is this an eye situation?
Baez.
Kind of like octopi?
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking.
Baez-eye?
Baez-eye. There we go. Thank you. See,
Glad we got
worked
to the
that
bottom
together.
of
I
it.
might have had a mini stroke on air.
So is Nolan Arenado going to be here today at 5:01 p.m.? John Denton wrote the following over on Cardinals.com. Quote, Cardinals president of baseball operations Sean Mozeliak recently met with Arenado to determine whether his list of acceptable trade destinations had expanded, and that answer is still, quote, unclear, end quote. Hey, Nolan, should probably clear that up. It's deadline day, buddy. However, Arenado did admit that he has some things to consider in the hours before the deadline. Quote, we'll see. I've got some things to take care of first, Arenado told MLB.com.
Pay some bills.
It'll probably be fine, but we'll let it play out and see where it goes, end quote.
What does that mean? It will probably be fine.
Truly do not know.
I mean, either way, I guess, does that mean you're fine with moving, fine with staying?
So earlier today, the backdrop to all of this, Isaac Paredes is going to be out for the next 6 months for the Houston Astros. They traded for a third baseman yesterday, Ramon Urias from the Baltimore Orioles, who has very similar numbers. Like, the name recognition could not be more different between Urias and Nolan Arenado, future Hall of Famer. The actual production over the last 2 years, both offensively and, unfortunately, defensively, pretty similar between the 2 players. Again, that's just looking at the back of the baseball cards. I would take Nolan Arenado over Urias, but the production is very similar. Alex, do you think that Nolan Arenado is going to be here at 5:01 p.m. today?
Yeah.
Well, he'll be in San Diego, but in a Cardinals uniform by 5:01 p.m. today.
I think he's going to be in a Cardinals uniform after the deadline today. As much as the mystery surrounding Nolan Arenado and if he's willing to move, if he's not willing to move, to me, I don't know how many teams are going hard after Nolan Arenado, and I just don't think Nolan Arenado is going to accept the trade unless it's something that makes sense for him. So I don't believe he's going to be moved. I think you're probably going to hear teams say, like, yeah, they're calling about him. Yeah, they're interested in him. I don't think Nolan Arenado accepts a trade elsewhere up until the deadline's gone. And honestly, I think if he doesn't accept one, that means he's going to be a Cardinal for the rest of this contract.
Yeah, I don't think he's going anywhere. I mean, when you can say that Urias has better numbers than Nolan Arenado and carries a higher WAR than Arenado.
Yeah, but what's that good for?
I know, but like I think it helps my case here. So I think it's good.
Cherry picking, of course.
Yeah, it's a typical T-bone.
Is that
stat to
T-Bone
cherry
or is that
pick.
BK over there? I can't really see.
But with that being said, like I just don't know who's trading for him because he's got 2 more years on the deal. There's more money involved in it than what Urias was, who had some control. There's also Willie Castro that's available with the Twins. Like, I think that's where teams are going to go. I think they're going to go to Castro and see if they can find him if they need third base help, rather than going after Nolan Arenado, which is going to be a complicated deal to work out. You got to figure out how much are the Cardinals going to eat, how much do we have to take on. Oh, by the way, does Nolan really want to come and be here? my expectation is he's going to remain a Cardinal. And I agree with Alex. I think Arenado's best chance, and I said it at the time when he blocked the trade, I thought his best chance to get out of St. Louis was in the offseason when he nixed that trade to the Houston Astros. And now that he's not going there, I don't see where the path is.
That sucks, man, for everybody involved, because the Cardinals need that spot on the roster. And he's not really helping them right now. He's not a good enough player for this team to make it work. There are teams where you can have a glove-first player, whether that be at shortstop, center field, catcher, whatever. Like the Astros won multiple World Series where their catcher was Martin Maldonado. Martin Maldonado was a net negative offensively. He was not just below league average offensive contributor. He was like a 40% below league average offensive player. He was horrible. And yet they were able to win with him because of how great the rest of their lineup is. So Arenado could be that for another contender. Like you look at the Mets, they could use him. The Tigers could use him. The Astros, I still believe, could use him.
Hell, the Cubs could use him.
Yeah, absolutely. The Brewers could use him. Now, their lineup is not very good, but they could just double down on run prevention, and he could help them do something like that. I mean, the Reds, hell, they just traded for a third baseman that is worse offensively than Nolan Arenado and is known as a glove-first player. So there are teams that could make this work. I just don't know if he's willing to go to any of them. And I'm not blaming him necessarily. I'm a person that chose to live in St. Louis because my wife is from here and it makes her happy and our families are happy living here. So, like, I have made a move, and listen, I'm not Nolan Arenado, but, like, I've made a move for happy, for family. And so I get that. But if your number one priority is winning, that is truly the number one priority, man, like this is your chance to go make that a possibility. And if you're choosing family over that, honestly, kind of commendable in a lot of different ways, but it is a choice that you have to make at this year's deadline. So I'll be very curious to see where he lands on this and where the market lands for a guy like Nolan Arenado.
Yeah, I mean,
think you're right, though. I like to give my firm opinion. I do not think he's going to be dealt at this year's deadline. I think it was Astros in the offseason or bust, and it busted.
And I think we're only talking about a couple of teams that are probably interested in this right now. And I just think there are too many hurdles to jump over, including that comment from Nolan Arenado. Sounds like it's still indecisive with the family in terms of, do we want to leave or do we not want to leave? And if you're indecisive hours before the deadline, this isn't something that you get a phone call that says, hey, Nolan, Detroit wants to acquire you. I don't have enough time to work through that, so no, I'm just going to stay here.
I just think that's the one that makes sense to me. I keep looking at Detroit, and I'm like, man, if it's set aside the no trade clause for a second. I know it's impossible to do, but if you're just talking about fit, team, aspirations, all of these different things, Detroit makes a ton of sense for Nolan Arenado. I think the Mets make a ton of sense for Nolan Arenado as well. If they hadn't already made the deal, I still believed that the Astros made a lot of sense for him.
I thought the Yankees made a ton of sense.
There are landing spots that I think could have worked, but either they're not interested in him or he's not interested in them, and that kind of eliminates a lot of opportunities.
Yeah, I think most of baseball's just not interested in him. I mean, he is. I think he's on the. I don't think he is on the decline, and this is the first year I think baseball has finally come to that conclusion. Because I think a lot of people, and I think this was part of the Astros thinking in the offseason was, yeah, okay, it's another bad year, but I mean, it's still Nolan Arenado, right? Like it's a future Hall of Famer. Of course, that guy figures it out. And the answer is he's not figuring it out. And I think defense value only goes so far for some teams. And I think some of these teams are looking for offensive help, like the Tigers. You mentioned them. Okay, maybe they could use a guy at the hot corner that helps them out, and he can bring some defense to them. Their offense has been going through it since the second half. So do I really want to bring in a net negative when it comes to his offense to try and help us? No, and then I got to go through all the hurdles. I just don't see the team that has interest in Arenado. I think this is more of baseball doesn't want Nolan Arenado than Nolan Arenado not wanting to go to a contender.
All right, let's hear from you guys. The mic drop features on the 101 ESPN app. We'll get to questions and answers here in about 5 minutes or so on BK and Ferrario. Again, Geoff Kontz, who works for Baseball America. He's a prospects writer. He breaks down the New York Mets prospects list, so we're going to get his thoughts on the deal that the Cardinals were able to land for Ryan Helsley yesterday. He'll join us at 12 o'clock. Want to hear from you right now on the mic drop feature. Let's start with Janet on her thoughts on the return for Helsley and Mats yesterday.
Underwhelming has been Mozeliak's legacy, and that's what he'll go down as, a very underwhelming GM.
Underwhelming.
Does that move Scream Mo to you, though?
What?
The trade that Helsley was. Because when I saw it, I was like, oh, okay, Chaim's got some fingerprints on this.
It kind of feels that way. I don't know.
That didn't scream Mo. To me, Mo
my honest answer, Alex, is I wish I knew.
See, to me, Mo was more of like the Robersay, the JC, the Showalter guys in AA, AAA that have a chance to make it next year. I mean, we're talking about a 20-year-old who's playing in rookie ball. That didn't scream John Mozeliak to me.
The thing is, I don't know because I've only seen him sell once.
Yeah.
And in that sell-off, they thought they were going to be good the next year.
I guess that's fair.
So they were selling off for immediate contributors that could help them very soon. Like TK Roby was very similar to some of the guys that they got in that trade. Big power arm. Hopefully you're projecting upside there, right? Showalter, very similar to the kind of reliever that they got in this deal. I guess Sajasi would be the best comparison, honestly, to what they got yesterday. It's different in terms of how close they were to the major league level, but in terms of their profiles, third baseman, middle infielder types that project to be hopefully a little bit more upside. I think this guy they got yesterday in Baez has more upside than Sajasi projected to have, but their problems were similar. They chased at everything. They just swung at everything in or out of the zone. So I think they have some similarities there. And my honest answer is I don't know. I don't know how much of this was Mo versus Chaim Bloom. And then the guy they got from Boston, like that's a classic Mo move, close to the big leagues, but also it's Chaim's former team. I have to imagine he had some influence in their organization on what they were targeting. So I don't know. I wish I had a better answer for you, but I don't.
I think the best way to know how much Chaim's involved in the moves at the deadline will be if they trade anything with control. Because
agreed.
Mo and Chaim, like I mean, you mentioned there's some similarities to the trade from the last time Mo had kind of sold off, the AAA guy. Yeah, there's the tie of Chaim was there, and then Mo, of course, once a guy that's close. But everything that we've heard publicly is Mo keeps saying, or what's reported is, hey, anybody control, that is a Chaim decision, the offseason, not at the deadline, the offseason. So I think if you see one of those guys dealt today before 5 o'clock, that will be the sign to me of, okay, so Chaim really was involved in this trade deadline, and he is accelerating the offseason right now.
All right, let's go back out to the mic drop feature. Let's hear from Nick.
Honestly, I'm happy with the return that the Cardinals got. This has got Chaim Bloom kind of written all over it because if it was Mozeliak, we probably would have gotten a rental aged out reliever and starting pitcher that's going to do absolutely nothing for the team next year going forward. And I'm hoping that Bloom does really revamp the minor league system to where some of these prospects that are lower graded but have high upside, like Alex said, can actually be turned into some legit major league players and maybe even stars, which we haven't seen yet out of Mozeliak. So I'm pretty happy with it.
He was talking about John King there, right? Like a washed up reliever that isn't going to help you next year.
Drew Rom.
Okay.
And John King. I think were the specific players that he was talking about.
J.A. Happ, one of those two. I mean, look, that's just the part for me. Like, again, it might be wearing Cardinals sunglasses when I'm thinking it, but it's just different. And in the sense that this team has been bad for 3 years, rather than saying like, hey, we could be better next year and going out there and getting something that could help you, and then it's just a 40-man roster clog, man, go get a 20-year-old who's got some possibilities to turn into something. It's just shooting for something different than what the Cardinals traditionally do, and that's where I think this fan base is at right now. They're just so... trying to think of the right word. They're so built in to expect the same from the Cardinals year after year after year. Now you're finally getting something different.
I do think Nick made a really good point there on trusting the development system.
Yeah.
That is something that may have changed for me. I can't speak for anybody else in our audience, but for me, as I see them aiming for these guys that are reporting, by the way, it has been announced by the Cardinals, the guys they got in return for Ryan Helsley will all play for Peoria. They'll report to high A ball for the Cardinals. One of the things that I do think is beneficial about Chaim Bloom and his staff now being in place in the minor league system, they will be developed by him. Like this is the really first group of players that will be going through the Chaim Bloom experience in the Cardinals minor league system. So we'll find out. We'll find out how much they're able to do to tinker with, the arsenal for these pitchers, or, hey, are there swing changes or even approach changes that could be implemented into Jesus Baez and what he's doing at the plate right now. All of that stuff is now on the plate for Chaim Bloom and his staff down in the minor league system. I do have a little more confidence in them being able to extract value there than I did prior to the changes that took place for the Cardinals in the winter. We will learn more about the Cardinals' return for Ryan Helsley with Geoff Kontz when he joins us from Baseball America in about 15 minutes. But next, 314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers here on BK and Ferrario.
maybe. It's BK and Ferrario's questions and answers on 101 ESPN.
319-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and get them in right now. We'll talk to Geoff of Baseball America in 10 minutes. Guys, are we seeing from the 314 Marmol's ceiling as a manager? If this roster is going to be worse next year, is he the best fit to manage it? I don't know what...
I think you and I were going to say the same thing, so I'm going to let you go. I'm going to let you finish.
Try not to be too Tony.
What does it mean to see his ceiling as a manager?
That's what about where I was going. Okay, good.
I think Ollie's had a pretty good year as a manager. I actually think he's mostly pushed the right buttons. He's put this team into the best positions to succeed. He's done a pretty good job with managing the playing time and like, hey, we're going to go ahead and push right now with Nolan Gorman. All right, that's not working well. Let's go with Alec Burleson now. Okay, Burleson's hitting. Let's continue to give him this runway. Okay, Newt is not really hitting well right now. Let's move him out of the leadoff spot. Donnie's going up. Okay, Burleson, let's get you up there in the lineup. All right, Mason Wynn, we're going to get you up. We're going to capitalize on your success. Okay, now you're not hitting anymore. You're going to drop. Like, I think Ollie's done a really good job. By the way, I don't know if you guys saw this yesterday. John King is the first Cardinals major league pitcher to hit the injured list this season.
That's incredible.
That's unbelievable. A lot of that is good fortune.
I think that's mostly luck, but I'll give him some credit.
Absolutely, but there is some of that. Maybe it's 5 to 10%, whatever. If we do the blame pie, the credit pie, we give credit here. Doesn't happen very often.
Cookie. So tiny.
A small sliver of that has to be given to the manager that is managing how these guys are used. So, long story short, I think Ollie's been fine. So if you think this is his ceiling as a manager, sure, yeah. And I think that he absolutely could be a good fit for next year.
I think he's been fine, and I think he's got the right mindset that you want. Here's the other thing. What are you hoping for if not Ollie?
Good point.
Like, do people still think Joe Madden makes sense for this team? Like, you can go out there.
To answer your question, yes, there is a subset of Cardinals fans that absolutely think he would be a good fit.
But why? Because you bring in Joe Madden because you want to do what? Win.
Some would say develop players because of what he did with the Rays, what he did with the Cubs early on.
Sure, but at his age now, I think you bring him in to win. And their team is not in any position to win. So why would I want to do that when I have a manager who's been here for multiple years now, who has been overseeing a lot of the development? Your options are a veteran manager who you bring in typically because you want to start winning, or an experienced manager. Do you really want to go down the inexperienced manager's path? So I don't know what you're looking for if Ollie's not the guy.
All right, the never-ending wipe asks, what is Blaze Jordan's role on this team?
I didn't know asks was the word you were saying.
I didn't realize he was moving to the next question.
Thought he was calling me a name.
I mentioned this earlier today. I got some pushback, so I'll try to be more clear here. I believe that Blaze Jordan, the idea of what he can be for the Cardinals, is what they had in mind for Luken Baker's role, which is bench bat against right-handed pitchers that comes off of the bench when you see a lefty reliever in a specific spot and hits for thump against that lefty reliever, and then can be a starter for you either at first base or designated hitter against left-handed pitching. He has unbelievable numbers against lefties in the minors. Can he be more than that? Sure. Absolutely. I don't want to put a ceiling on it. I have no idea what the guy's going to be. He's like 22 years old.
And he can play third base too, correct? He does third and first?
Maybe. I haven't seen anything
I thought I saw that he can do third.
It looks like he's going to project towards first, but yeah, he has done both.
And knowing the Cardinals, they'll turn that into a corner outfielder at some point.
Possibly.
But here's a question. Mm-hmm. Do you see him on the major league roster next year at the beginning?
I don't know. It depends on what the moves are that they make.
I thought it was more of like a guy that you can bring up in
He's
a pinch.
22, man. Like he might be another year or two away from like really contributing at the major league level. But if somebody gets hurt, could he get the call up? Yeah, I think he could.
And could it be like a Matt Adams type of player to where it's just a guy that makes a role out of being a bench player, but can be a starter if you need him to?
All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. We've had a lot of people saying that we're getting paid by Ollie Marmol. And I wish.
And if that's the case, I'd love to see that paycheck because,
I need
some.
Real quick. I mean, look at the roster, right? How the hell is this team 500? What's he supposed to do? He
like-
can't win with this roster. He couldn't win with 23's roster. Joe Madden can't win with this roster.
Like this one right here from the 314. I think it's time to give Stubby Clapp his opportunity.
That's the same thing.
Why? That's what you've been complaining about
Because
for the
it's
last 10 years.
Because it's different.
How?
Because he's a new name.
But it's still an inexperienced manager, and people say, well, I don't want an inexperienced
Played
manager.
baseball. He's not Mo's pick.
I appreciate how you're being calm with this, because this is pissing me
being
off.
serious. Like I think that what people want is something different. That's where I'm at right now. Is like this is just my perspective on it, my internalized belief based upon the text that we see sometimes. I think people are sick of seeing Miles Michaelis get his brains beaten in. I think that, by the way, he's throwing 95
How is that
yesterday.
the manager's fault, though?
It's not necessarily, but he's the one you see every day. So you associate, like the word association game, you associate Ollie Marmol's face, voice, moves with losing baseball in St. Louis.
But this is also the
I
audience.
don't think that's fair.
This
but
is
that's
also the
reality
audience
that some people see.
that believes John Mozeliak fills out the roster and the lineup card and brings it down to the manager.
Because Ollie, according to some, is Mo's puppet. I don't believe that to be the case.
And
In
they
fact,
don't think Stubby Clapp would become that?
no, because Mo's gone.
Well, can't Ollie not be Mo's puppet if Mo's not there?
No, now he's going to be Chaim's puppet or the DeWitt's puppet. I'm
Like this one, too, from the well-endowed. Overseen a lot of development. Unfortunately, most haven't developed like we'd hoped. Mason Wynn hasn't developed. Burleson, Herrera, Liberatore.
Not into a star, okay?
I'm not trying to defend Ollie like he's
I think people are just sick of the losing. And so everybody has to go. Because this team sucks, according to the text line, right? Some on the text line. I don't want to, not everybody fits into this criteria.
No. You're using your words.
According to some on the text line, the Cardinals suck, the players suck, the manager has burned this down to the ground. The president of baseball operations has to go. It's a joke that I kind of believe with it. I agree with this. It's a joke that he's in charge of the deadline when he's not going to be in charge of these players that he is acquiring right now. So all of this, just get rid of it. I just want my old Cardinals back, and my old Cardinals had a Hall of Fame manager and Hall of Fame players. Get me back to that.
Fine. Bring in Joe Madden and watch the team be 500 again.
Yeah, my thing on the manager side of things is just the Brewers lost Craig Counsell, brought in a guy that nobody knew his name until he was hired, and now they're the best team in baseball. Meanwhile, you look at, for example, the Atlanta Braves. Brian Snitker was the best thing since sliced bread, 3 years ago? He's an amazing manager, old school, incorporated some of the new school ideas, had all of this young talent, was pressing all the right buttons. People loved them because they didn't mess with the lineup every day. So everybody was playing in the same spot, in the same order, in the lineup every day. And they had their core together for the next 5+ years. And now they suck. Is that his fault? I think not. But the Texas Rangers are another example of this. Bruce Bochy, Hall of Fame manager, amazing. Last year they sucked. Was that his fault? No. You look out there in Arizona, Torey Lovullo, 4 years ago, I thought was throwing games. He obviously wasn't, but watching the games, I thought he was managing to help his team lose. And then his team goes to the World Series. He's a great manager suddenly. And then over the last 2 years, his team stinks again.
Oh, remember Craig Counsell? How he was supposed to turn the Cubs into this world beater? How were they last year?
Not good.
What were they this year?
They're really good.
And what'd they do?
They got players. Coming up next, Geoff Contz is going to tell us if the Cardinals got players in this Ryan Helsley move. We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN. 846, that's the Air Comfort Service text line. The mic drop features on the 101 ESPN app. We are listening to what you guys have to say throughout the day today on the Cardinals' returns for Ryan Helsley and what they got for Steven Matz. They got a guy named Blaze, which means that I'm all in on that trade. And they got a guy named Jesus, which means Alex is all in on what they got in return
Cardinals found their savior.
Ryan Helsley. We're 2 for 2 so far.
Let's go.
We'll see. You see what he did there, T-Bone? You weren't paying
Jesus.
attention?
No,
They got their savior.
trying to.
That's all right.
Focus on
All right,
other
breaking
things.
news from Bob Nightingale. The Phillies have traded for outfielder Harrison Bader from the
comes
Minnesota
BK.
Twins.
Here he comes.
Quote, he provides fabulous defense, end quote. That is from Bob Nightingale. Adding that the Twins will receive, quote, 2 lightly regarded prospects, end quote. Does that mean 2 bad prospects?
Yeah, that's Bob Nightingale's way of putting it. Like, yeah, 2 guys that you're never going to hear from.
Just real quick on the Bader thing.
Of course. It's never a real quick on a Bader thing. This is his 15-minute tangent on why Bader made sense for the Cardinals.
I'll give you 30 seconds. My best 30
get
seconds.
15.
On it. This is why I thought that the Cardinals should trade for him, because it wasn't going to acquire much, or it wasn't going to take much to acquire him. And he's a pretty decent player. There you go. That's it. I think he's a great
10 seconds.
I think he's a great addition for the Philadelphia Phillies. He's exactly what they need.
Yeah, and you know
Right-handed
what?
bat, good defense.
If this team was in the position that the Phillies were in, I probably would have been a little bit more on board with it. But when the Cardinals were, when we were talking about Bader and the position that they were in, they didn't just need a really good they needed something that was going to make a difference for them. And that's where I think I fell on the Harrison Bader. And I mean, look, I understand
clearly they've fallen so far out of it. Bader wasn't saving this.
He is a difference maker in terms of the right side of the plate against left-handed pitchers, which was a problem. But man, they just needed somebody that was good against right and left-handed pitchers. That was my bigger thing with the Bader. But yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if Bader goes on to have a moment for the Phillies this year.
I think that Bob might have undersold this return just a little bit. They got the 12th overall prospect in the Phillies system, Hendry Mendez, did the Minnesota Twins. He's a 21-year-old lefty who is at the AA level right now, batting .290 with a little bit of pop. So credit to the Phillies for giving up what is seems like a decent return, all things considered, for Harrison Bader. I really like what the Phillies have done so far. They had Duran, who's going to be a great addition at the back end of their pen. They gave up a pretty decent amount for him. Now they go out there and get a really solid outfielder for their mix. I like what they're doing thus far. Who would you guys say so far has, quote-unquote, won the trade deadline in your mind?
I think the Mets have done an incredible job.
I agree. I
think the Mets have a bullpen that is World Series built.
My guess is they're going to get Luis Robert, by the way.
Yeah, and if they get Luis Robert, and I know people, Luis Robert has not been good, but I think a change of scenery could be good for Luis
T-Bone's
Robert.
Face.
Yeah, T-Bone's face said it all.
Goes,
I think the Blue Jays have done an incredible job, too. To go get Shane Bieber, like if Bieber is going to be what we think he's going to be, I mean, that's an elite rotation that can carry you through the playoffs, and their offense has been doing a really damn good job.
Real quick update from John Morosi. A Steven Kwan trade is, quote, viewed as increasingly likely, end quote, according to John Morosi. Dude, if there is enough, if they were asking for from the Padres their number 3 prospect in all of Major League Baseball, and now it is looking likely that they will have that price met by somebody for Steven Kwan, the Cardinals not listening on their controllable players, in my opinion, would be crazy. Like you have to listen, because there's clearly a huge market for these controllable pieces, whether that be bullpen arms, Jojo Romero, listen on him, or position players like Steven Kwan, Brendan Donovan, Lars Nootbaar. Brendan Donovan would be my last resort, but listen, if you can get the number 3 prospect in baseball, for example.
Nootbaar and Gorman,
Gorman is another one.
Nootbaar and Gorman should be on the trade block, and they should be in these conversations, because if that's what you're going to get for Steven Kwan, that's once again, that's malpractice by the Cardinals to not pull off a deal with guys that have control.
I'm going to be really curious to see what the return actually looks like if this deal goes down. All right, T-Bone, who do you think has been the winner of the trade deadline thus far? We still got 5 hours before it's officially over.
Yeah, I like what Seattle has done, adding Suarez to add some pop to that lineup in a ballpark that's very hard to hit at, along with Josh Naylor. I mean, you look at their lineup and what it looks to be. I mean, you got the big dumper that's in there, Cal Raleigh, who's got some power, Julio Rodriguez. Rodriguez, Randy Arozarena, like they are very deep with their offense. They've also got very good pitching. So I like what the Mariners have done so far in this trade deadline.
All right, we are now going to be joined by Geoff Pontes of Baseball America. You can check him out over there. He just got finished with a YouTube stream where they were breaking down. I mentioned that
Cardinals trade,
prospect
right?
in baseball. No, not that
they
one.
Weren't talking about Jesus.
AJ Preller did what he does, which is give up whatever it takes to get, the biggest and brightest and shiniest new object. This year, that was Mason Miller. Geoff Pontes did a great job of that. Excuse me, Geoff Pontes of Baseball America did a great job of that. I remember last time he told us it was like Ponce de Leon. Confused the two sides of things there. Geoff, appreciate the time as always, man. Cardinals make a big move last night. Ryan Helsley going over to the New York Mets. You work on the Mets prospect list over there. Give us a little bit of a breakdown on what the Cardinals were able to acquire here. Did you like the return for Helsley?
Yeah, I think anytime you're looking at a more or less like a rental reliever, regardless of how good he's been and how many saves and the established closer thing that we used to hear, when you're getting potential full-time players and a pair of pitching prospects that have starter type upside and have some traits that I think if you look at sort of how the Red Sox current pitching development started, there's a lot of traits that Bloom was sort of targeting high ride fastball guys with unique release traits. They both sort of check those boxes. I think Baez is somebody that kind of needs a reset a little bit. I think maybe shaking things up and moving to a different organization could help him. He was a top 100 prospect for us entering the season. He's struggled a little bit as some of the plate skills have backed up, and he hasn't hit for the same impact that we had anticipated that he would come into the year. But entering the season, we had above average hit, above average future power, and the ability to potentially stick at third base long term with an above average arm to plus arm as all of his tool grades. So there's certainly some pedigree here with Baez. It hasn't been the year that the Mets or Baez obviously hoped for, but I think it's a pretty good buy low on a position prospect that's still young, still has a lot of upside, has a lot of traits and characteristics and tools to like in terms of, especially with the bat. And then you get a couple of arms in Dome and Elisart, who both ride the ball really well. Probably want a little bit more velocity on Dome, not just on the four seam, but on the secondaries. He's more like 92, 93, where I really think with some of his traits, if you can get him up to like 94 to 96, all that stuff starts to play a lot better. Elisart, I wrote up for the trade last night. I think is one of the more interesting finds they had. This was a D2 guy that had, a pretty significant velocity jump this year. Was a 19th rounder in 2024. So like a legitimate late round, really cheap find. And I think a guy that was on the upswing. I bet if you talk to some front offices, there might even be some teams that like him more than don't.
Interesting.
So Geoff, this seems like a dumb question to ask, but there's just been a lot going around of saying like, the Cardinals got fleeced by the Mets. This is a terrible return. In your opinion, is this the best that the Cardinals could have done at the deadline with Helsley?
Yeah, I think it's a very reasonable return. It's always tough to know best in particular because this is a very subjective area when it comes to prospects where you can talk to 3 or 4 front offices and get really different opinions on 2 or 3 different players. So I think depending on what they were looking for, I think this was a pretty solid return. And I think it's some upside arms that they don't have in the system and kind of the upside bat that they haven't been able to find after the first couple of rounds. And frankly, a lot of their international position prospect signings over the last 5 to 10 years really haven't hit, particularly in the middle infield. So I think you need some players like that. And I think it's a nice injection of talent for a reliever who is probably on his way out anyway.
So with Jesus Baez, and we're talking with Geoff Pontes, he works over at Baseball America. You could find his work there. He wrote up the trade deadline move for the Cardinals yesterday with Ryan Helsley, and he's joining us now here on BK and Ferrario. With Baez, you mentioned that you guys had him as a top 100 prospect coming into the season, and now he has since dropped out. Describe for Cardinals fans what kind of a player he is, because Man, I have seen some dramatically different reviews on him. Some on one side, some on a very different extreme on him. So describe for Cardinals fans what they got in Jesus Baez.
Makes a lot of contact. Rarely strikes out. There's big underlying power numbers there that haven't totally been actualized. Fairly high ground ball rate.
That sounds familiar.
Which I think is sort of something that's very fixable, though. I think like when you look at Baez as a 20-year-old that was at a full season level, this guy's younger than the college players that were in the draft this year. Keeping that strikeout rate really low, walks at a decent clip. I think there is some power projection there as well. I think the other thing that we need to sort of bring up with Baez is even though he's a right-handed hitter, that park in Brooklyn that he played in this year is literally at Cody Island. Like the hot dog eating competition happens right there. The water, the ocean is in right field. So if you hit anything out the opposite field there, it's going to get chewed up pretty quickly. It's really hard to hit the ball out to right field. So I think when you start to factor some of all this stuff in, was still an above average offensive player, has a plus arm, not a real fast guy. Range will probably be the question at third base long term, but likely sticks in the dirt and probably sticks there long term. Really good chance that it's an average regular. I don't know that it's going to be an all-star or something like that, but a valuable piece. And I haven't done the Cardinals list for a few years now. He's probably going to rank pretty easily, like within the top 5 or so. So, I think that it was a pretty good get. I wouldn't be too concerned about this for a reliever that, wasn't going to be on this team next year.
Out of curiosity, and I'm not trying to ask you to answer for other people's, prospect breakdowns or anything like that, their prospect report, but why do you think Baez is such a polarizing prospect? What do you think it is about his game, how he goes about things that is so polarizing for different analysts across the industry?
Yeah, I mean, I can't necessarily speak to what other people put out there. Sure. It depends who they're talking to. I tend to lean on a variety of sources, and I have access to advanced data going back a few different years. It's not publicly available, all the StatCast stuff for these other levels. If people aren't necessarily looking at that stuff, they probably don't have a great handle on what his plate skills actually are like. Or, you talk to a couple of scouts that just simply don't like the player, and bury him. I've seen lists in the public space, not ours, over the last 5 years that had Spencer Torkelson over Julio Rodriguez by 4 or 5 spots. So I mean, the stuff that's on some other lists from year to year and what other analysts will say on a particular player is just it's gonna vary. He's not a shortstop. He's not a catcher. He's not a center fielder, and I think that eliminates him for a lot of people. But and the numbers, on surface from a baseball card stats kind of perspective haven't been good, but it was a 119 WRC plus. So he was still nearly 20% better than most of the competition in the Sally League this year. And, he's probably 2.5 years younger than the average age of competition. So all that stuff models out pretty well.
Geoff, I apologize if I'm throwing a curveball at you, but the other one that I haven't asked you about is Blaze Jordan that they got from the Boston Red Sox. Any information on that one and kind of what he profiles as for the Cardinals?
Yeah, it was probably one of the most famous 13-year-old baseball players in like the history of the earth. Had all these big home run hitting exploits when he was just, a young teenager, and was really, really well known, like LeBron James well known.
They got LeBron James.
Come to fruition. He wasn't drafted that way. Dropped to the 3rd round after he reclassed as a high school junior in 2020. It's been a slow burn. Really good contact skills, like incredible contact skills and bat to ball ability. There's bat speed and raw power, but it's kind of an inside out swing. I saw him play his last game for AAA Worcester yesterday afternoon against Andrew Painter. He's never going to develop into like a 30 home run bat that pulls the ball in the air. But he'll be a guy that hits for a high average, spreads it around, rarely strikes out. I think at AAA this year is like a 22-year-old. He has like a 10% strikeout rate. So like very good contact skills. not a great athlete, doesn't move very well. I would describe his running gaunt as like kind of Babe Ruth-ish. It's very
What? How would you describe Babe Ruth?
He doesn't move well. And it's funny because like his glove, his arm are pretty good at third base. Like his actions are fine. He just has zero range over there, which has kind of forced him over to first base. It wouldn't shock me if he plays some third base, fills in there for Memphis here and there. But it's really the bat that you're hoping on here, and that maybe you can teach him to pull the ball in the air consistently. But it's like a better version of what you kind of have with like a Luke and Baker. It's I think like the pie in the sky sort of, this is what we hope this guy turns out to be, is like a Ty France sort of Brian Healy type, where has a couple of good years where he hits for some average and gets you, 18 pumps or something like that.
Hey, Geoff, you can say whatever you want. I heard Babe Ruth, so I'm thinking Hall of Famer, legend with a cigar in his mouth.
Right.
When you were describing him, just the style of player, the player that came to mind for me instantly was, now they're different handedness for sure. It sounded like Alec Burleson. Is there some of that in what Blaze Jordan is, or are there pretty significant differences in how they profile?
It's not different. Burleson's just probably a better athlete with a little bit more power.
Gotcha.
Just a little bit better angles. But yeah, not entirely different. They both have big arms, and they kind of can't use it because they play first base. Like Burleson obviously was a two-way guy in college, and Jordan probably has a 60 arm at third base. He just, like I said, they haven't played him there all that much. So it wouldn't shock me if he gets some more run over there, where Burleson kind of played the outfield and first base. But Burleson's a better version of that player, so it's kind of somewhere between Burleson and Luke and Baker on the depth chart.
All right, last thing. We'll get Geoff Pontes out of here on this one. We've had a lot of people that say something to the effect of this, Geoff. Okay, so cool. They acquired another infielder. They already have 100 of those in their minor league system, and then now at the major league level. Why are they doing this? For anybody that is saying that right now, Geoff, how do you feel about acquiring a guy that maybe blocked a bit right now in their system? Is that something that matters at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you're putting together the roster, it's a problem when you're talking about position players that are all kind of crunched up at a similar level. And I feel like they have a lot of that right now. It's less of a problem when it's pitchers. You need a lot more depth with pitchers, just with the volume of injuries and, how consistently that sort of thing happens. But yeah, I mean, it's a lot of redundancy to have, and you have to hope that a few of these guys pan out, and a couple of them maybe you can package together for an upgrade at another position or something like that. So I think GMs will tell you that they or scouting directors, they want as many good players at every position group as possible, and they'll figure out how it lays out every season and trade off the pieces that they don't need or that they can use to upgrade other areas. So I don't know that it's a problem as much as it's just going for they're in asset acquisition mode at this point. It's just going out there and trying to acquire the most amount of perceived good assets that in the future either turn into trade pieces or maybe regulars or fill-ins for you.
He's Geoff Pontes. Find his great work over at Baseball America. If you don't have a subscription yet, now is the time to get it. This is the perfect time of the year. Find out where all these prospects are going and then whether or not they're any good. Geoff Pontes does great work over there, as does everybody at Baseball America. Geoff, thanks so much for the time today, man. Appreciate it as always. We'll talk with you again soon.
Thanks, man.
You got it. That's Geoff Pontes joining us here on BK and Ferrario. All right, so they got Babe Ruth.
Yep.
Otherwise known as a cross of Alec Burleson / Luke and Baker.
Yep.
Which is basically Babe
But
Ruth.
runs like Babe Ruth. Which
right.
I just see Babe Ruth like in those Looney Tune cartoons when the legs are moving but the upper body's not, with a cigar in his mouth.
Love it. They got upside arms.
Yeah.
Like hearing that. And they got a bat that translates to the major league level. Seems like a hell of a return, man. People hate it, but sure sounds like a good return to me.
For a rental. Like, that's the part. Yes, you could say an elite closer and one of the best in the game, but he was a rental compared to 2 years of control and 5 years of control. Everything he said sounds like what the Cardinals were needing to accomplish and go for future upside rather than something that can help them next year.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
Because to be blunt, they don't need anything that helps them next year, because right now I think they're just going to be bad again.
And if they could get it, I promise you they probably would, but the upside that exists is further away.
You know how you get it, though? You trade Newbar or you trade Brendan Donovan right now. That's how you get that. I mean, what you were talking about and what Geoff was talking about with the infielders, it sounds a lot like what people were complaining about with the Blues over the last couple of years at the draft. Oh, they drafted another left-handed defenseman. They got 17 of them.
Great point.
That's great, man, but only 3 are going to make the team. You know what other teams probably need? Left-handed defensemen. And you know what you could get? When you need something when you need something to acquire, you give up something that you have a lot of, i.e. Zach Bolduc this last offseason. You get a lot of infielders. Not all of them are going to play for the Cardinals. They're going to get traded when you are ready to make that move.
That's my thing is like, hey, if they get a bunch of good players and they don't have spots for all of those good players, when Chaim Bloom is in charge, his job will be to find new landing spots for those good players.
Yeah.
And that is when you do what, probably not to the same degree, but you do what AJ Preller is doing, where he's no longer in asset accumulation mode. He is in asset, let's get the bleep better at the major league level mode. And once you get to that place, start flipping these players. And you go through and you're like, okay, we're betting on this, we're selling on that. These are the guys that we're building around. Kylie McDaniel just tweeted this out, by the way, of ESPN.com. Previously was in the Atlanta Braves front office. He did some executive work there. Said if most of the good relievers and all of the great relievers have been traded for, quote, overpays, then that's just what the market is drawing right now, and that becomes the market value. Some teams refuse to have that overpay for any reliever, and thus will likely end up with none. How badly do those teams really want to win this year if that's their perspective? Alex, this is why I am sell on JoJo Romero. He's a good reliever with a great contract. And when you have players like that at this time of the year and you have some very motivated buyers, that is when you get great returns. We just heard about the return for Ryan Helsley. Seemed pretty good to me. We heard about the return for Steven Matz. Given what you're giving up, seems great to me.
People were just trying to get rid of Steven Matz last year.
100%. And now you're in a spot where you could sell on another player that is very good. Like you could get similar package to what you got for Ryan Helsley, dude. Yeah, you've got to capitalize. Yeah. And the same thing should be true for Phil Maton. I would imagine they're going to get a decent amount for him as well.
And this one from the 636 saying, like, Alex, that's great, but you're never the Cardinals will never flip those players. That was in the old regime. I don't know what to expect with Chaim Bloom. But
they did at one point. They used to do that.
Like, just like they used to draft and develop.
They used to have a pitching surplus. Guess what they did? They traded the good ones. They traded Zach Gallen and they traded Sandy Alcantara. They kept Jack Flaherty.
And then they got
kept
the Yips.
Weaver.
Carlos Martinez.
They kept Martinez. They kept Alex Reyes. Some of them broke. Others didn't work out. And it is what it is. They bet on the wrong dudes apparently, but they did use that surplus value on their pitching side of things and acquired Marcell Ozuna. They used their surplus on, was it Weaver and Carson Kelly? So like the catching prospects talent that they had, they traded that to go get, Paul Goldschmidt. They traded some in the past. Like you go all the way back to 2011 for relievers. They've done that in the past. They have stopped doing that over the last 3 years. It coincides with them being where they are today.
Someone's very upset with us that we keep saying that they need to make more trades because this team's in a playoff race. I don't think that individual realizes that this Cardinals team was just shut out twice by the Marlins.
Maybe they do, and they say they're still only, 4 back now?
Man, they're drinking the Kool-Aid like you were drinking about the Kool-Aid.
Let's see, they are 5.5.
10 back in the division, 5.5 back, but only one team between them and the Padres. The Padres clearly are not motivated buyers, so I've heard they're selling on Dylan Cease and Suarez. So they're probably going to drop back. Cardinals could immediately bump up over the Reds and the Padres for that final wildcard spot.
Part that I just realized was they were shut out in back-to-back games by a team that has a lower payroll than every NHL team right now.
That's correct.
Yeah, but they got good pitching.
But they're in a playoff race.
On the plus side, they have only been shut out 10 times in their last 41 games.
That's a playoff team if I've ever heard of one.
Which is roughly 23% of their games in which they have scored 0 runs in the last month and a half.
I smell a top 10 pick.
Coming up next, they can't have one of those.
Son of a...
literally ineligible to receive a top 10 pick.
Way to go, Cardinals. You screwed that up, too.
Stinky rebuilding.
They cannot win the lottery next year because they had back-to-back. I think that's how that works. I'll have to check to make sure.
11th is great.
Now I need to check my work. I'm leaking confidence.
I thought they could be top 10. I thought they couldn't be top 5.
I think it's like top 6. I'll have to check on exactly where that is. Erase everything. Men in Black flashy thing. Erase all of that from your memory. I said nothing.
Score.
Coming up next, Anthony Stalter absolutely nailed his thoughts on why today feels so underwhelming for so many in this fan base. We'll talk about it next here on 101 ESPN.
Darren Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Cardinals fell to the Marlins last night 2-0 as they dropped 2 of 3 to the Miami Marlins. They are off today. We'll be back in action tomorrow when they start a 3-game set at the San Diego Padres. And today is trade deadline day in Major League Baseball. 5 o'clock is when the deadline comes to an end. Cardinals made 2 moves last night as they traded closer Ryan Helsley to the New York Mets in exchange for 3 prospects, and they traded Steven Matz to the Boston Red Sox. And we'll keep you updated throughout the day today here on 101 ESPN on the Cardinals trade deadline, and live tonight at 6 o'clock, live version of the Redbird Report with myself and BK reacting to all the Cardinals trades today. This Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. CMalondoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, a little bit of news to pass along. This comes from Ken Rosenthal. The Yankees and the Pirates are discussing a possible David Bednar trade. So, reliever from the Pirates
Wasn't that guy
potentially
DFA'd
going
earlier this year?
No,
He was optioned.
Oh, that's what it was.
he's potentially
back.
going to the New York Yankees. We'll see if there's any update there. The Dodgers are acquiring Brock Stewart, a reliever from the Minnesota Twins. It also seems like the Cubs and the Brewers are just kind of sitting this one out. I've seen nothing connecting either of them to anybody. Now, the starting pitching market really has not moved yet. There's been almost no movement whatsoever. Like, there's still Zach Gallen out there. Merrill Kelly could potentially be moved at some point today. Maybe Sandy Alcantara does. Dylan Cease is a name that's been out there. So we have not heard much of anything on those guys. Maybe that's the plan for the Cubs, is to go big on one of those starters. I think that's what they need. The Brewers, meanwhile,
They missed their opportunity.
you know that meme of like, hey, do something? Can you add something offensively? If I'm a Brewers fan today, I'm furious, dude.
Yeah.
This team is the best in baseball right now, have the best record in the sport. You have a real chance in a wide open National League where the Dodgers have not become the team that we all expected them to be. You have the best pitching in this league, and your offense is terrible. Go upgrade. Go get somebody. I don't even care at this point who necessarily it is, but you've got to add something anyways. So that's the latest updates on the deadline.
Brewers missed their chance with Suarez. I thought Suarez made the most sense for them. Now, I could see them go after Marcell Ozuna, but then you're playing Marcell Ozuna in one of the corner outfield spots, and I don't know if you want to do that.
By the way, he received updates from somebody. I think the Cardinals are boxed out of the top 10 in the draft next year. I think. I'm not willing to go as definitive as I was. I've read this thing like 10 different times. None of us could honestly understand it. Yeah. Because of the Cardinals situation last year with their draft pick, they had the 5th highest lottery odds, but then they selected 7th. Had they, quote unquote, won the lottery, not picked first, but been in the top 6, I think they would be kicked out of the top 6 this year. And I think that means because of where they are, like revenue wise, I think they would have been kicked out of the top 10. They picked 7th. So I don't know if that means they're kicked out of the top 6, the top 10, or if they're just totally fine. They can pick anywhere.
We'll find out at the draft lottery in about 6 months.
We'll find out together. I'll try to get some more information on that for you guys as I can. All right.
Text Mo. He's not busy.
He literally hadn't done anything yet today.
You want to talk about the meme of do something?
He had a late night.
Oh, he's just getting up?
That's not good.
They're in San Diego, dude. It's like 10:30 there right
Mo's
now.
got like 17 missed calls from GMs being like, Mo, we want your pictures.
Mo, you're in San Diego. It's Preller. Open the door. I want to talk about Newt.
Slides a note under the table. Just sign on the dotted lines, John. Just sign.
He probably had the meeting similar to the one that we heard about with the Rangers a few years ago, where Chris Young is in his war room and he looks at his people. He says, can we win the World Series? And they all said yes. And he said, then all of these players up here, those are our top 10 prospects. Do not get tied to any of them because they're all walking out the door today.
That war, if Mo is...
It worked.
Yeah, well...
And that's Preller. Preller said, hey, you see this list of players?
I thought you meant Mo, and I'm like,
No,
if
no,
the Cardinals war room is saying, yes, we're all World Series contenders,
My
then...
guess is Preller had a similar meeting with his war room today and said, do you think we can win the World Series? If yes, these dudes are gone. And then he goes to Mo and says, here's my list of the top 10 guys that we have remaining on our system. Pick 2. You get them for Lars Nootbaar.
How's this one from Bob Nightingale? The Padres are still on the prowl for an outfielder and are confident they'll land one.
Dude,
answer the door, Mo!
Mo, he's been calling for 20 minutes. This is like when I didn't wake up for a show one time. I did yoga the night before.
Saying once. I at least remember twice.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I got at least 3 times.
Answer the call, Mo.
Somebody's, hey, Gersh! Where are you,
I
dude?
saw him in the
That's
press
your
box the
music.
other day.
Chaim is banging on the door. Mo! AJ's calling!
By the way, let's be honest. Preller probably had that meeting with the war room, and they said, I don't know if we can win the World Series. He said, to hell with you guys. I'm trading these guys anyways.
It's like Moneyball, where he just says, nope, these guys suck. Take them off.
So Anthony Stalter had something really smart to say on Twitter today.
He always has smart stuff.
Very rarely on Twitter, though.
Very rarely on Twitter.
Stalter tweets less than just about anybody that I've ever met.
Yeah.
So when he tweets something, it really means something. It's like when Goldie would say something to the team. He doesn't really talk. So when he does, we're going to go ahead and listen. Yep. Stalter is our Goldie, is what I'm saying here.
It's like Jay Bomeister.
Like prime Goldie, not the Goldie that we got in the final year of his career.
Stoltz is a slugger.
Stoltz said the following. It's a little long, but I think it's worth your time.
Hold on.
Go ahead and sit down. I call this BK Reads the Internet.
Uh-oh.
In reading through the reviews and opinions of the Cardinals' return for Ryan Helsley and Steven Matz, I couldn't help but feel disappointed. That said, it really has nothing to do with the prospects that they got in return. I was always going to be disappointed. Trade deadlines suck as sellers. What the Mets have done over the last 24 hours has been exciting. None of their fans are worried about the future because their future is right now. They get to look forward to the next few months. Teams get to have their eyes on the future. That's not what being a fan is all about. When the Cardinals front office speaks following the trade deadline, I hope the message to fans is this. While necessary, today is not a good day for the organization. Selling twice in 3 years is just not acceptable. We have to raise our standards, not ask the fans to lower theirs. It's baseball. Bleep happens. Look at the Braves this year. That said, while not always realistic, the goal for the Cardinals front office is to always buy at the deadline. They needed to sell this year. There's no question about that. I just hope as competitors, this sucks for them too. One other Cardinals-related deadline thought, I wouldn't get too hung up on what positions these prospects play. Drew Gilbert was one of the key pieces for the Mets in their 23 Verlander trade with Houston. They just flipped Drew Gilbert at this year's deadline to the Giants to acquire Rodgers. The key is to build and have organizational depth. Man, first of all,
yeah. God bless you, Stoltz. Out of
well
the park.
said.
Out
well
of the park.
said. And I'm glad you put it on Twitter so that way I could read it at 12:45 and I didn't have to wait till 2 o'clock.
Yeah, you just took away their show open. Way to go, Brandon.
I mean, it's so well said, dude. Selling is brutal. I've gone through so many of these as a Royals fan. Where you get to the deadline, I'm like, all hope is lost. And you don't really even care about that year's team anymore. And so all you're doing is like, hey, sell and try to get future stars. And the reality is most of the time, these guys stink. They have no future with your team. And the hope then becomes, all right, sell them again, right? Like you acquire players at the deadline, just like Stalter brought up the player for the Mets that was dealt for one of their relievers they acquired yesterday. The same thing was true for the Brewers, right? The Brewers sold with Josh Hader. The return that they got then became a key piece in their deal to acquire William Contreras, who is now a critical component of their roster for their contending version of their roster. The Cubs did this. It's different because they bought a major league player, but they bought Isaac Paredes, who then became a critical piece in their trade with the Astros to acquire Kyle Tucker. So the same thing could be true for the Cardinals this year. I don't know if these guys that they're going to acquire at this year's deadline, whether it's for Helsley or for Matz or for Maton or hopefully for JoJo Romero, maybe for Lars Nootbaar whenever Mo wakes up and accepts the call from AJ Preller. I don't know if these guys are ever going to have a future for the Cardinals big league club. But your prospects serve two goals. One, to help feed the major league roster with players, or two, to help serve as assets, to acquire players that can help you at the major league club. I think the Cardinals have kind of forgotten about that second piece over the last 3 years. They've just kind of set that aside, and they've only focused on feeding these players to the big league club. My hope is that Chaim Bloom gets back to that, and he will utilize this as what they are, which is assets. That's accumulation mode, and eventually you use that to help your big league roster.
They've lost their creativity, and that's the hardest part when you're a fan of a team that knows their team's not creative enough to make moves like that, to make their team better. It's why I think people get so excited about the Blues. They know Doug Armstrong can pull off a move at any moment, whether it's the offer sheet or flipping guys for a player that you can't believe you found a trade for. The Cardinals have just lost that. And the part that I thought Stalter nailed too was, it sucks watching these other teams go out there and make these massive moves because that used to be the Cardinals. It used to be the Cardinals when Larry Walker's name would be available via trade. It'd be like, oh, the Cardinals are going to get that guy. Or when Matt Holliday was available, oh, the Cardinals are going to get that guy. And now it's just you see potential of a team 2 months into the season, and you're like, yeah, but this team's not going to continue that, and they're not going to buy. Because whether the ownership doesn't want to spend money or the front office isn't creative enough to make those moves. They're going to draft and develop and just keep churning out these guys and not willing to trade them until their stock drops and then move them for pennies on the dollar. That's where the team is at. I think there's just a lot of people that are lethargic with it. They're apathetic with it. Like, you want the creativity. You want the ability to know, like, yeah, my front office will see something in a team and they'll say, hell, we're going to make this team better. If it doesn't, it's going to be better for the future. That's where it feels like you just got to get through this deadline. You get through this deadline, you start with Chaim Bloom, and in the offseason, you get a new feel for this Cardinals of where they're going to go.
Yeah, their problem is that they became stale, and I think that's what it came down to. And Stoltz is 100% right. Typically, you should be, once you get these assets, you look and you see what other pieces you can move. But then when you see a list like, I think it was yesterday in The Athletic, and a great piece that's been done by Andy McCullough, a 3 or 4 part piece on the trade deadline, and they've made it, it's like the second or third fewest moves in the National League since, I think it was the COVID season. That's just stale, right? That's not bringing in assets. That's not kind of flipping and moving the musical chairs around. Because that's like a lot of what Jerry DiPoto does. He does a lot of just moving pieces around to where you look at the roster, I don't know if we're better, but at least he's trying something different. And that's what they've been trying to do here, which is what makes it what they need to get back to. I think you're right, BK. They used to be that, but that is where they've got to get closer towards.
Mo's not answering the phone, buddy.
What just happened?
Katie just tweeted out.
I want to get to this on the other side.
Oh, I just saw.
Yeah, he ain't answering.
This belongs in the junk drawer.
That's true. I mean, we had a better junk drawer today than this.
We're going to throw this in the trash where it belongs, which is in the trunk drawer or the junk drawer.
The trunk drawer?
I said drunk.
Are you drunk?
Drunk.
The chunk drawer?
Junk.
The
Whatever
chunk
it
drawer?
is.
It's trash.
We got to talk about the Cardinals next. this. It deserves to be in the junk drawer. This comes from Katie Wu, Cardinals insider for The Athletic. Phil Maton is expected to be the final trade for the Cardinals. Teams have inquired about Brendan Donovan, Alec Burleson, and Lars Nootbaar to varying degrees, but, quote, St. Louis has not entertained that up to this point, according to a team source. President of Baseball Operations John Mozeliak said twice in July that if the Cardinals sold, it would likely be limited to players on expiring deals, similar to how the organization operated last time that it sold in 2023. Helsley, Matz, and Maton are all pending free agents. They're checking boxes. That's what this is. They're checking a box. Are you a pending free agent? If yes, you need to be sold because we have to get something for you instead of just having you here for the next 2 months. If no, you get to be here because that means that you're here next year and we're going to keep you here.
Woohoo!
Listen, man, if there weren't big time prices being paid for controllable players, I would get this. I would. I wouldn't blame them at all. But when I see that the Cleveland Guardians, this was reported by multiple prominent reporters, the Cleveland Guardians were asking for the guy that was traded for Mason Miller. He was the asking price for Stephen Kwan. And once he was dealt, the next report was Stephen Kwan is likely to be traded at this year's deadline. Now, maybe he isn't dealt, and ultimately every team comes to the same conclusion, which is these deals are easier to make and better to make in the offseason. All right, cool. I hate that it feels as though the Cardinals are taking the path of least resistance again. And Alex, it is boring. Their job is not necessarily to entertain us, but it is boring. It is conservative. It is risk averse. It is everything that the Cardinals have been for close to a decade. And I think it's beyond time for them to change. And this opportunity that exists right now is typically rare for the Cardinals, where they can extract real value at the deadline for some of their players. And instead of doing so, they are once again kicking the can down the road. It's become a theme for, again, basically since COVID. Mm-hmm. They just keep kicking the can. We'll figure this out down the road. We've got a bunch of players for too few spots on our roster. We'll make it work. And then Ollie's like, we're making it work. And I'm not blaming Ollie at all, but he's been he's been dealt a hand that is impossible to play. He's got a 2-7 off suit, and he's like, I'll make the best out of it. I hope the flop goes my way. I don't know. I hate this, dude.
You say that their job isn't to entertain us, but isn't it their job to entertain us? Isn't it their job to put together an entertaining ball club? And they've been failing to do that. Like, to
2022 was fun. I really enjoyed that season.
Because of one signing that went well for you half of the year.
2024 was good for like a month.
Yeah, well, this was fun for 2 months, and now look at where we're at. Like, you're not doing your job. Like, to see the quote from Katie from the team source saying they're not entertaining those players' names up to this point. Cool that you're not doing your job because you're not evaluating these players properly.
Look at what the Guardians are doing, man.
We all see it. We all see the answers on these players. We know what Brendan Donovan is. We know what Alec Burleson is. We know what Lars Nootbaar and Nolan Gorman and JoJo Romero are. At what point do you sit there and say, you know what? These guys aren't what we thought they were going to be. People are paying a premium for these types of players right now. Let's entertain the offer. That doesn't mean you have to make the move.
100%. Like, dude, there's still 4 hours. Don't just immediately say, yeah, we're out.
And you know what happens when that clock keeps ticking closer to 5 o'clock Eastern time? Desperation. The Padres don't get their outfielder. Guess what? Maybe we got to eat it. Maybe we got to give up our fourth best prospect, the top 50 prospect in all of baseball. And the Cardinals aren't even entertaining it. That means the teams are calling and they're saying, nope, we're not trading Brendan Donovan. We're not trading Lars Nootbaar. We're going to wait to the offseason. Guess what, man? Some of these teams that might want to trade for him in the offseason, they may get their guy now and not need to worry about it in the offseason. This is the lack of creativity that Stalter nailed. The team is not willing to get creative with what they've got. You're stuck in the middle, and your tires are stuck deep in the mud, and they're going to be in the mud moving forward.
Yeah, I'm surprised that they are. No, I'm not. Never mind. I'm not surprised that they are deciding to just quit listening on these conversations. And I'm with you guys. Look, based on the way that they seem to be talking about what the upcoming offseason seems to hold, or what reporting should say, not what they're saying, but what reporting seems to suggest, it's hard to see how you get better. It feels like they are 3 to 5 years away, right? Yeah. Doesn't it feel that way? Yeah,
what Katie told
and
us.
It feels like
Not
they're
a tear
trying,
down, but a rebuild. I totally agree.
That's what Katie told us.
It feels like they are on a 3 to 5 year plan right now, and you know what could really help you with that is by trading a controllable bat. That, if we're being honest, it's hard to picture where Nootbaar fits into this team that going into next year, let alone trying to figure out the next 2 months of what this
where's he
lineup's
fit
going to
when he
look
comes
like.
back?
I have no idea.
And apparently Herrera's a regular outfielder now.
Yeah,
we
I was
barely
shocked.
talked about the game yesterday, but
Well, makes
Herrera
sense.
started in left field
And I
2
was
out of the
shocked
last
by
3
that.
days with Michaelis on the mound.
Yeah, who throws hard, by the way, now, too.
Yeah, he throws
That's why.
96.
That's why. Michaelis has
But-
figured it out.
Have you looked at where the Guardians are in the standings, by the way?
They're like the same spot. Aren't they like right at 500?
It's the Spider-Man meme.
They're 2.5 games back with 0 teams between them and the third.
But you know what the
wild card. I guess
Cleveland-
technically it's a tie for that third wild card, so there's kind of one. But yeah, it's like they are where the Reds are, and they're selling right now. Now I know their closer was just forbidden from playing baseball
the
for
other
the next
reliever.
6 weeks. Their other starter is also gone for a while as well. That influences decisions. Don't get me wrong, but
why they're
Shane
not betting on
Bieber
it.
is gone.
Yeah.
They have traded. They're potentially trading Stephen Kwan. They're listening, who is at a very similar spot to where Lars
27 years
Nootbaar
old.
is with you. And they're very much listening on him, and all of the reporting indicates this is happening.
You know why? Because they're creative. They're willing to get creative with their roster.
Dude, there was just a piece that came out this week over on The Athletic about how difficult they are to deal with, where it's like they just grind you. They're considered the Cleveland grind machine.
The grinders.
That's what the nickname has been given to their front office by other major league executives, because they're so hard to deal with because they'll keep pushing and pushing and pushing and asking for more and more and more. Meanwhile, the Cardinals were barely even mentioned in that piece because I think they're kind of a forgotten afterthought at this point. Can I give you one thing that really concerns me about this deadline?
And Chaim is still locked in his dungeon?
It has to do with Chaim Bloom, and I want to tell you about it coming up next year on BK and Ferrario.
Your home sold guaranteed.
Geoff alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK. So I said before the break, there's one thing that really concerns me about the way that the Cardinals are approaching this deadline. And if you missed it, in the junk drawer, we talked about the Cardinals report from Katie Wu of The Athletic, who said Phil Maton is expected to be the final trade for the Cardinals. Teams have inquired about Brendan Donovan, Alec Burleson, and Lars Nootbaar to varying degrees, but St. Louis has, quote, not entertained that up to this point, end quote. I did reach out to Katie. I don't think she would be upset with me sharing this. I said, hey, what does this mean for JoJo? She said she's not sure exactly where they're at with JoJo Romero right now. So Phil Maton may be the final trade, but keep in mind, JoJo was not mentioned in this piece, so it's possible he could still be dealt. Let's put him to the side. Let's talk about the controllable position players, though. What concerns me, Alex, remember when we talked to Rob Bradford, who covers the Boston Red Sox? We talked to him about Chaim Bloom, and he's a fan of Chaim Bloom. Said he thinks he's going to be a good hire for the Cardinals, thinks he'll do a good job. But he was honest, and he said that there were some things here in Boston that he didn't do really well. One of the biggest things was making these hard decisions, specifically at a trade deadline, where he's on a clock, he has to make a call, and he seemed to straddle the fence a lot. It was buying and selling, and it was not making the tough decisions at the time that was necessary to make them. One of the fears that I have with Chaim Bloom taking charge is that it won't be a significant change. Now, the minor league level, I think we're already seeing there are changes that are going to be incorporated into this organization. I think there is stuff that is being modernized already in their player procurement where they are looking for different things. They're looking for big fastballs. They're looking for strikeout stuff. I think the player development system in general, they've put better people in charge of it. They have expanded their staff. So, like, all of that is kudos to Chaim Bloom. He's done a good job. He clearly helped them in Boston as well. We're seeing the fruits of that labor right now. However, when it comes to the way that you manage and navigate a 26-man roster at the major league level, my concern is that that part won't look all that different from what we have seen previously with John Mozeliak, and that there may be some moments where there's a big decision that needs to be made, and there are players that you've got to choose, him or him, player X or player Y, and he says, why not both? Just keep both of them around, and we'll let the competition play out. Well, because when you do that, one of those guys is likely sitting on the bench, and what you could otherwise get for him is, a starter that helps you as a number 3 starter for your rotation, and you get much more value out of that. That's my concern, Alex. What if, I think right now people are saying this is clearly John Mozeliak's call. What if it's not? What if he is listening to Chaim Bloom? And Chaim is telling him, hey, this is what I think we should do. We shouldn't move these guys right now. We should play this out the rest of the year. And then maybe we talk again in the offseason. What if Chaim Bloom was involved with, hey, Eric Fetty should continue to start for us. We should continue to try to extract some value here. Hey, Miles Michaelis, it actually doesn't make sense to DFA him. We don't have the pitchers in our system to come take that spot in the rotation. We need to keep pitching him because we're paying him this money. What if it's not just a Mo call on this stuff? What if Chaim is also having some input and they are listening to his input right now? That's my fear.
And it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, ownership is the one that makes the decision on who they're hiring as president of baseball operations. And why wouldn't you go to a guy that's somewhat like John Mozeliak? Because, well, John Mozeliak has been doing the job for the owners for the longest time. If that's the case, and I think you're on to something there, the Cardinals are bleeped. You witnessed what just took place for the last 5 years since COVID. I guess you could go a little bit beyond that, but they were still a little bit of a playoff team with some veterans there that had that Hall of Fame prowess. But post-COVID, this has been the Cardinals team. And if Chaim's stepping in and is going to be doing much like what John Mozeliak did, because guess what? They all have bosses. Well, then you've just seen what the next future is going to look like for the Cardinals, holding on to these prospects and finding these players and trying to develop them. And when it doesn't work, you hold out hope for the longest time and you're not willing to get creative. I really am trying my darndest not to think that way, because I hope Chaim has a different mentality and Mo has just been the one that's been headlining this deadline. But, man, if it goes that direction, then we're going to be seeing a lot of what you talked about with the Kansas City Royals. We're 2 months into the season, it's fun, and then about 3 or 4 in, it's over, and you know what to expect.
Yeah, I think if this is part of Chaim making some of the decisions, and you are right about what you're saying there.
And this is speculation by me, but I mean, we know he's involved in
Yeah.
some capacity. I think Mo's making the final calls here, but that doesn't mean that it's all like Mo's making the calls and choosing the players. Like there's a committee here.
Well, and I remember because I think I remember that interview that you're referencing with Rob Bradford, and I remember saying to you after the interview, because I think it was you and me that did it. I think I said something along the lines of, "But didn't that sound a lot like Mo?"
Yeah.
And I was critical when they hired Chaim Bloom or named him that, because he felt like a guy that always got stuck in the middle, which is where the Cardinals are at. And when you get stuck in the middle, look, you can kind of play through the process and do what you're talking about, which is, hey, maybe we let the competition settle this, but then you devalue an asset. What happens is you don't really accelerate things, right? What we said about doing 3 to 5 years is what I just said in the last segment, is what it feels like their time frame is to when they're in their next, maybe beginning of their next winning window. You can't accelerate that if you're just going to hold on to pieces. You're going to continue to be kind of stuck, and you're going to get to spots where you look at where you get to just free agents or rentals that you have, and you say, okay, well, we're going to move this guy, and we get a lottery ticket prospect, rather than jumping ahead of the timetable here and saying, hey, let's move a controllable bat while we have this log jam. And there is value in what would be Lars Nootbaar. I know some people don't believe that, but Nootbaar, Donovan, they would carry value because they're left-handed bats, and as we've seen at this year's trade deadline, teams don't necessarily pay for the result. They are paying for the control and what is the contract value for the couple of years that you have control on that guy. And Nootbaar would be very cheap for any team that wanted to acquire him, which is why they would give it up. So it would be alarming if Chaim Bloom, which again, he is a part of this, but it would be very alarming if Chaim Bloom is in there telling Mo, hey, let's hang on to all these pieces. I need more time to figure this out, because I feel like they should have an idea of who's a part of the core, who's the guy you're willing to trade, and who's the guy that maybe you're listening on, not actively trying to trade, but at least listening on saying, hey, if we got the Godfather offer, we're still willing to part with him.
I just don't know what else you need to know from these players. Like, your team is 500 with 50-something games to go. You're out of this playoff race. Nootbaar is hurt again. Like,
he's coming back.
Sure. Just like it is every single year. And guess what's going to happen?
Was great yesterday. Homer and a double.
Guess what's going to happen? Both are going to be really good when they come back at the end of the season, and then the Cardinals will be like, hey.
One of them's going to sit the bench. We don't have enough spots to start him.
I don't know what else you need to see. If we can see it from here, what else are the Cardinals seeing to where they're like, oh, yeah, there's still untapped potential here, especially when teams are willing to pay a premium for something that you have.
I got this from the text, and it's what you said, T-Bone, 618. Guys, Nootbaar has no value. I don't know how else to say this, because, like, if you don't believe that, there's nothing that I'm going to be able to say that's going to change your mind. That's just factually not true. It's not true. Lars Nootbaar, at a minimum, even if you hate Lars Nootbaar, which there are many in our listening audience right now that do, Lars Nootbaar is the following, and these are objectively true measures. Lars Nootbaar is, at minimum, an average offensive player with above-average on-base skills. Lars Nootbaar is an above-average defender in left field. Lars Nootbaar is an above-average athlete. And Lars Nootbaar is under club control for multiple seasons at a more than reasonable contract. Also, Lars Nootbaar is a good dude in the locker room and has a great makeup as a baseball player.
And he can help you sign Shohei Ohtani.
Sure.
Oh, wait.
Everything that I just mentioned, if you see no other upside in him, that is hugely valuable to baseball teams. They pay a premium for that kind of a player. Remember Adam Eaton? In that offseason where the Cardinals decided to go cheap, they didn't want to give up the prospects capital to go get the premier headline trade acquisition that had the high on base center field opportunity. That he was the primary goal for the Cardinals that offseason. When they acquired Dexter Fowler and went with a lesser option, it was Adam Eaton. That is effectively what Lars Nootbaar is right now. And he's in left field instead of center field. I think Eaton eventually was always going to kind of move to the corner as well. But that's new. Good contract, solid player. There's huge value here. The Cardinals are kicking the can down the road and extracting that value. I'm not telling you that he is, as we have heard, the Cardinals just acquired Babe Ruth. I'm not telling you that Lars Nootbaar is Babe Ruth. Nobody believes that. Lars Nootbaar is a really solid major league player that has huge value at a deadline because of his contract and because he's at a minimum average. And there are so many teams that would love to go from crap to average in their outfield. That's a huge upgrade for a lot of teams out there.
As you mentioned, like if Steven Kwan is getting that potential return, Lars Nootbaar should be getting that potential return. And
Bingo.
That's the part that I just don't understand. And even the Brendan Donovan one, like, I understand you don't want to give up on Brendan Donovan, but man, if the Phillies and Astros are calling, they're going because they want to try and win a World Series. And guess what you do when you're trying to win a World Series? You get desperate. And to not be willing to entertain, it's not that they're not willing to trade him. It's not that they're willing to entertain the offer.
I'm so glad you brought that up. That's exactly right, Alex.
Like, just answer the phone and see what teams are willing to offer right now.
The phrasing on this report, St. Louis has, quote, not entertained that up to this point, according to team sources. Maybe that's just a turn of phrase, and they're just like, hey, yeah, they're probably not going to do that. Or maybe it is very simply, they're not trading those three. They're not interested in doing it. They don't care what the asking price is. They're not moving Donnie, Burley, or Newt. Man, I just think that is such a bad way to go about this. Because there was a reporting by Derek Gould that, hey, they're canvassing the interest out there in Nolan Gorman. Nolan Gorman was not a part of this report, that they're not even entertaining offers on him. My guess is they just didn't get the offers on Gorman. That makes sense to me. I'm not surprised there's not a lot of value out there for Gorman because it's been such a rough couple of seasons for him. But to not entertain it, that's what bothers me, man. If you come to the conclusion the return's not there, I can live with that. Like, if Stephen Kwan doesn't get moved, it's clear they really were out there reaching out to see what can we get for Stephen Kwan. If you're a Guardians fan, all right, our front office did what they could. And they decided it's worth it for us to keep him. We'll see what it looks like next year. I can't see that as a Cardinals fan right now. You know? That's what sucks.
Yeah, and that's what, and I swear Mo said this. Maybe I was remembering another GM saying this, but I swear I remember Mo saying at one point of, hey, it's good to listen because then you have an idea of where the industry values your guys.
That sounds like an Army quote.
It's such an Army quote too. But like, I swear I remember Mo saying that, and then to just say like, hey, yeah, we're not going to be taking those phone calls today. What happened? Like, where did that change come from? Because it's one thing to not trade them and not pick up the phone. It's another to what BK just said. You start scouring around, seeing what people are willing to give. Maybe you get that offer you can't refuse, or maybe you look at it and go, okay, the value's not there. It is best for us to hold on to Lars Nootbaar because, like, if you want the positive aspect of this, at minimum, you could hold on to these guys for the offseason and then potentially trade some of them and package them to be buyers, but I don't think they're going to do that.
And that's what I was going to say. I mean, you start these conversations, you entertain them at the deadline, because if it doesn't meet your need, it's already the makings of a deal in the offseason. But now if you're not even entertaining the offers, then why are these teams going to be interested in talking about it? Because they're going to go elsewhere knowing that this team's not willing to listen. The unwillingness to try and get creative is where the Cardinals have been stuck in the mud for the last 5 years, and it's why they just continue to be average, now below average. I make you
this
upset.
from the three. No, everything you're saying is
equal. I think he's upset with the text.
Oh, sorry.
From the 314, you understand that these reports are needed only for material purposes and are usually not rooted in any type of substance effect. There are some of these reports that I do believe are speculation more than they are actual reporting. You can typically suss those out pretty quickly. And it's based on the phrasing. It's based on, honestly, who is reporting it sometimes. You can go through and see this is speculation, this is reporting. What we are talking about right now from Katie Wu is reporting. This is not speculation by her. She has been told by a team source exactly what the thinking is among the Cardinals. If you don't believe that, I don't really know what to tell you. Yeah. Then, like, you won't believe any of the information out there, and it's all based upon your own feelings and your own, like, personal belief on what the Cardinals are doing, and you'll either believe everything they do is great or everything they do is bad, and it's all, like, I don't know how you get any information in that scenario. But it's not true that all of this is just pure speculation and nonsense and made up. It's just not true. And I don't know how else to put that. Yeah. But
you're a seeing is believing kind of person and wait for a trade to happen before you believe it.
Katie's not making this stuff up.
No.
I can promise you that. All right, coming up on the other side, I do want to hear from you guys because we've talked a lot about this today, what the Cardinals are doing at the deadline. 314-399-9646, that's the Air Comfort Service text line. Do want to hear from you via the mic drop feature today. Big day for you guys. Scott Lee Heating mic drop feature on the 101 ESPN app.
It's kind of like a tap on the butt. Big day for you, big guy.
Day.
Come on out there.
Get out there, champ.
Get on out there. It's your day.
Eric sent one in. He's got some thoughts on the Helsley return. We got one from Nick on whether or not the Cardinals should be listening on Lars Nootbaar. Also want to hear from you guys on JoJo Romero. We'll give you some final thoughts on that as well. It's all coming up next here on BK and Ferrario. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. This comes from Jesse Rogers of ESPN.com. New Cubs reliever Andrew Kittredge is here at Wrigley today. Flew in with the Orioles last night, was in his hotel room for 30 minutes, was told of the trade, and then switched hotels.
Can't sleep with the enemy.
Picked Gunnar Henderson as the Oriole that he most wants to get out this weekend.
Attaway.
That was a good move by the Cubs. I'll give them credit. Andrew Kittredge is a really nice pickup for them. He's having another good season. His underlying numbers are good once again. That guy's a good reliever. I'd be cool with him coming back for the Cardinals next year.
No, we're done with that. We've moved on.
He might be too expensive.
He's also 36 years old. I think we're good.
If the Cardinals are planning to be good again, that would be a
Tell that to Arenado, though.
All right, we want to hear from you guys. Mic drop features on the 101 ESPN app. How you feeling today?
Dandy. It's beautiful outside. The humidity's gone.
Dude, it is really nice out.
Sat out on my back patio last night.
I might get
Tonight
a cigar
would be a
to
good
smoke
night
tonight.
to go to the zoo. Romeo and Juliet. It was canceled last week because of the horrific heat. I'm guessing that you probably were not going to see somebody like, I don't know, Sonny Gray out there in that kind of heat to watch
too wet.
Romeo and Juliet. But tonight would be great.
Too wet. And you know what? Just the Cardinals can't bring me down on a day like today.
No, go see Romeo and Juliet.
Phil
Go to the
Maton's
Muni.
still in town. He should go before he gets traded.
What would you guys do on a night like this? We went to the park yesterday, Alex.
Probably that, actually.
Yeah,
go find a good park to let the girls go ride their bikes on and go on a playground set.
T-Bone sitting on his patio, smoking a cigar,
Maybe
drinking
go out to a
glass
restaurant,
of whiskey.
eat outside.
Ooh,
That's
today's a
what I
good
love to
patio
do.
day.
I do have Cactus Lime Mick Ultra in my refrigerator
I
downstairs.
think I've
So
only got Bud Light. I need to get a whiskey and a
St.
cigar
Charles.
tonight.
Oh, you know what? Maybe we go to Salt and Smoke tonight.
Ooh,
Sit on their
got a
patio
beautiful outdoor
outside.
area.
It's a really nice patio out on Main Street
I'm
in
cooking.
St. Charles.
I'm cooking chicken cutlets tonight.
So it's deadline day. A lot of news passing along here on BK and Ferrario. Want to hear from you. Mic drop features on the 101 ESPN app. Let's hear from Eric on the Helsley return.
Ultimately, I have come to the conclusion that no matter what the Cardinals do, Cardinal fans are going to be upset. Facebook's probably not the best place to judge by that because I think people a lot of times have no idea what they're talking about.
Amen to that.
I think we got the best we could for Helsley. We got two teams, top 20 prospects. That's about what I thought we were going to get anywhere else. It is what it is. I think Chaim Bloom is really behind this deadline, so I'm going to give him faith and give him the benefit of the doubt.
Well, Nick, Eric, I hope you missed the previous segment where BK just ished all over Chaim Bloom. But other than that, that's a level-handed individual.
Can I ask you a quick follow-up on that?
Sure.
Good, really good mic drop.
Great
Eric.
job, Eric.
Appreciate it. How much do you think the perspective of yesterday's trades change if Mo steps down after the draft? If instead of Mo having any kind of a hand in the deadline, it's purely Chaim Bloom,
people would be...
And everybody knows this is the guy that's in charge of the deadline.
I don't want to say people would be thrilled, but people would be optimistic about what the Cardinals just acquired because they would say, hey, Chaim's got a background in identifying international talent, finds a young 20-year-old infielder. It's a third baseman that could be Arenado's protege moving forward. This is a move that Chaim sees a future with. That would be the reaction. But because it was Mo, it was, another A-ball guy that's not even going to make the team. You suck at developing.
And then on the other side of things, the Matz deal, he knows this guy better than anybody.
Yeah.
He drafted him in 2020. He developed them through the system. The Red Sox don't have a spot for him because obviously they have 100 first basemen, as we've learned this year, blocking Blaze.
Otherwise, the Cardinals now are like, Mo getting another first baseman that's never going to make the roster, just be on the 40-man and clog it. Unbelievable.
It's so funny you asked this question because I saw somebody, I don't remember who it was, tweet out last night. So we're all on the same page, right? Like if this works, it was Chaim. If it fails, it was Mo. Cool. It's just like, oh, yeah.
I think I truly believe last night's reaction was solely based on the hatred of John Mozeliak and thinking that Mo made these moves because he's going to ruin more prospects for this team with potentially the best asset that they've had. I think people were pissed because Mo was going to trade Helsley from the moment they knew that Helsley was going to get traded.
And they said, hey, you should have done it in the offseason. You would have had more. I do think if we've learned anything this year at the deadline, it's relievers trade them at the deadline. It's risky to keep them because you never know health or performance where it's going to be. But they all have so much value at the deadline. It's what every team is looking for every single season.
And you don't have this many teams fighting for relievers in the offseason.
Correct. Because they've got other options. They can go to the market, and if they don't acquire your player, they can go get somebody else. So I do think now that we've seen it play itself out, I think it was probably the smart move to hold on to Ryan Helsley in the offseason. Now, we can have a conversation about 2023. That's a different call on whether or not they should have traded him then. when he had been what the value is right now for Emmanuel Clase, for example. But right now, I think it's a little bit different. All right, let's hear from Nick on the mic drop feature.
I hate to burst your bubble, BK. Nobody is that desperate for Lars Nootbaar. He can't stay healthy. He's inconsistent. He only does one thing well, and it's get on base, but he doesn't do that consistently well. Doesn't like to swing the bat. Average defender. No one, besides control, nobody is going to give up a lot for him. He should have been gone years ago from us. Somebody will fall into the trap of sure control, but he's a Japanese superstar, which is the only thing the Cardinals liked about him was because he had an international fan base and because they love people chanting his name. That's beside the point. He should have been gone yesterday.
Nick, you were upset before the trade deadline even came. You were upset
understandably so.
A month ago.
Listen, man, people make fun of me a lot for the baseball savant stuff. Like, that's fine. Teams use it. They don't specifically use savant, but they have stuff internally that they look at. Exit velos, how often you're squaring up the ball, how often you're whiffing, what's your walk rate, all of these different things. And they look so much further beyond the hood. Like, dude, some of the stuff that these teams use are so far above my head. It's crazy. And for Nootbaar, especially early on in his career, he was a darling in some of those metrics. Like, he hit the ball incredibly hard. He hit it in the air with consistency. All of the underlying stuff said, hey, man, this guy might be a future star. Now, that obviously has not come to fruition. He's not that player. He's a really solid outfielder that has club control, and he's 27 years old. That alone has value, but I don't think the star-level performance is going to be there for him. He just has too many other warts. He's on the ground too often. It's just not there. Does that have value, though, on the trade market? Yes, and Nick brought it up. It's because of the control. If Nootbaar was this was the final year of his deal, he was an expiring contract, I would not be singing the same tune. I would think they should still sell him because he's an expiring deal. You should move on from that because he's probably not a part of your future. But the value in Nootbaar as a trade asset is the control. That's where you're able to get something of significance for him. So, yeah. I'm not telling you got to love him. Honestly, if you hate Lars Nootbaar, you should be agreeing with me because that means it is more likely that they could get something of significance for him that pushes them off of their current stance, which is he should be kept instead of traded.
Yeah, is he the best player available on the market? Absolutely not. But I think anytime you have a left-handed bat corner outfielder who has the ability to be really good at on base and powerful stuff when he connects and good on the base paths in terms of ability to steal bases and better than average defense that Nick pointed out, as long as there's control and he's young, teams are always going to be desperate for. You don't think the Padres would pay a hefty price to get that for what they've got in the outfield compared to now to get a Lars Nootbaar? You're just sadly mistaken on that one.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. You guys can get involved as well on the mic drop feature over on the 101 ESPN app. From Derek Gould, a little bit of news to pass along. Quick note, when the Cardinals placed John King on the 15-day IL, he was the first major league pitcher this season to go on the IL for them, and with a torso injury, not an arm injury. Cardinals have been proactive and fortunate at avoiding the pitching injuries this year. One of the best in Major League Baseball at avoiding them so far. So we mentioned that earlier today. John King placed on the IL, first Cardinals pitcher on the big league roster. Zach Thompson was placed on the IL, but he was not a part of the 26-man roster at any point. On the big league roster, he's the first one to go on the injured list so far this season. We'll continue hearing from you, your thoughts on the Cardinals as it is officially deadline day here on BK and Ferrario. That's next.
Taryn Hendrickson here, the Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Cardinals off today, but yesterday they dropped to the Miami Marlins as they dropped 2 of 3 to Miami. And last night the Cardinals made 2 trades as they traded Ryan Helsley to the New York Mets for 3 prospects and traded Steven Matz to the Boston Red Sox. Trade deadline is today at 5 o'clock. We'll keep you updated throughout the show today and throughout the day here on 101 ESPN on any moves that the Cardinals might make. And tonight, live at 6 o'clock, is the Redbird Report with myself and BK will be reacting to the Cardinals trade deadline. The Sports Center update is brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
This comes from Chad Jennings over on The Athletic. Last summer, the Dodgers made a big 3-team deal that included Michael Kopech and Tommy Edman. Then they delivered a final blockbuster by trading for Jack Flaherty in the minutes before the deadline. The Dodgers have been relatively quiet thus far. Do they have an 11th hour surprise in store? I hope so. I hope so, Chad. I hope that surprise they have in store is named Lars and the last name is Nootbaar. But I don't have a whole lot of hope in that.
I'm thinking it might be Sandy and Alcantara. Could be the
one of the pitchers. I think it's Alcantara or Cabrera.
That'd be good.
One of those two.
Maybe one of the Arizona pitchers.
Yeah.
Kelly.
What do they do? I've seen zero buzz on them.
I have no idea.
How about this one? The Yankees, Giancarlo Stanton just ran into Aranda. Aranda's down holding his wrist. Now the Yankees need an outfielder.
I did see.
Well, if Aranda is down, he's the one that's hurt, right?
Yeah.
So that's the Rays guy.
Oh, is it?
Remember,
I thought
he was the one that Aaron Boone should have been fired for putting him into the home run derby.
Yeah, you're right.
Thing.
You're right. Sorry, I thought that was the outfield and they ran into each other.
I did see.
Right.
Remember, Yandy Diaz was kind of floated out there as being a name. Yeah, he got hit on the hand. Yeah, he's getting X-rays. So.
Suarez got hit on the hand and he was fine. He hit a home run his next at bat.
He had 2 more games to come back and show like, hey, I'm fine.
It's fine.
All right, let's get back to your mic drops on the 101 ESPN app. If you guys want to have any thoughts on the deadline thus far, what you think will happen before 5 o'clock today, 3.5 hours prior to the official deadline. And there's been, almost no activity on the starting pitching market. That's been the most interesting thing thus far. The relief market has been crazy. Position player market, there's been a couple, but not many. And then the starting pitching market is just dead right now. So I'm guessing that's what we'll see a lot of movement on in the next few hours. Let's hear from Evan via the mic drop feature.
Hey guys, just wanted to add my thoughts on how I'm feeling about the Cards trade deadline.
Hell yeah.
Honestly, this is kind of what I expected, and I would have been really mad if we didn't do anything. But this is kind of what I expected. I would consider this trade deadline a win if they can just move from Arenado. But currently, if this is how it ends, I'd give it a B-, maybe a B. I'm happy because this allows us to at least build depth. That's your first step when you're building for the future. You need depth. So all in all, B-.
Watch out for that car, Evan. Or aircraft carrier, whichever one. I wouldn't give it a B if this is how it ends.
No.
Give it a C-. You didn't trade.
So they're going to trade Maton. We'll get the return for that.
Maybe they're not taking calls on that anymore.
Let's say they only trade the 3 rentals and they get like adequate but not anything overwhelming return for Phil Maton. Operating under that assumption, that starting point, it's hard for me to give it more than a C- or a D+.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm at a C if that's what you do.
You did the bare minimum.
Yeah.
You did the absolute bare minimum. You traded your 3 rental relievers, which every team that's in the Cardinals' shoes would have done. And you got a return which seems adequate, not overwhelming, but like good enough. And you did nothing more. So if I was in a class and I literally did the bare minimum,
you'd pass.
A D+? Yeah. So I think that's probably the grade that I would give them. Not because I hate the return that they got. I was pretty optimistic about the return they got yesterday. I kind of liked it.
It's not about the return. It's about the inability to get creative with a lot of pieces that could do well for your team's future.
It's the process, right?
Yeah. Like not trading Romero, to me, I said it at the beginning, it's malpractice.
I agree.
It's a controllable left-handed reliever that everybody wants at this time of the year.
There is no scenario in which he has more value at any point moving forward than he does right now. Mm-hmm. And you have to ask yourself this question if you're the Cardinals. are we going to be a legitimate contender next year? Because if you truly believe that, if you think you can compete for a title next year, like if you're, I don't know, the Braves may truly believe they're going to be a title contender next year again because they get healthy, the pitching staff is better. Like I could see how they could convince themselves of that, right? And if you were in their scenario, if you're keeping JoJo Romero, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
I would probably flip him even then, but I understand how you could get yourself to that point. How can the Cardinals convince themselves that they're going to be a contender next year? And if they can't, if they don't, then what is the rationale to keep him? I don't get that one at all.
You're unwilling to spend. They're financially motivated to move money out, and your pitching is in scrapnel right now. How can you live in a world where you believe that you could be a contender next year? So in that sense, you should be moving that along. You've got a lot of bullpen arms that you've seen spurts from this season. Give them a little bit more of a runway. But the part that even pushes me more towards the D+ is you're not entertaining offers on something that teams are willing to pay a hefty price on. That's where this thing has gotten off the tracks for me. It's gone on the crazy train in honor of Ozzy Osbourne here. Like, you've got an outfielder, you've got a second baseman that has control. And there are teams that are desperate for that right now. Stephen Kwan's name is still out there. He's not been traded yet. You're not even entertaining offers on that. You have not only done the bare minimum, you haven't done your job. So, yeah, I'd say D+.
314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line. And YouTube chat is available for you as always. We've had more than 300 people in there for most of the day. Appreciate all of you guys that are contributing over there, getting your thoughts in, chatting over there on the YouTube chat, youtube.com/101ESPN STL. A reminder, we will have a live Redbird report. It will be streamed live on YouTube. It will air live on 101 ESPN tonight at 6 o'clock, reacting to whatever else comes for the Cardinals deadline. If you want to be reminded of that, you can go over to our YouTube page, and on that YouTube, go to the live, click on that live link. You'll see the Redbird report, which is scheduled for later on tonight. If you click notify me, it will remind you when we go live over there. So you can do that over on YouTube. Do you want to continue hearing from you? Let's hear from Bill.
I agree the Cardinals need to make some trades, but I'm not really happy hearing everybody talk about Brendan Donovan. Brendan Donovan is the leader of this team, and I think he should be a part of any future team that they're going to put together to make a playoff and home series run. So I'm all for trading some of these guys to clear the way, but I'm not interested in trading Brendan Donovan.
I get that.
I didn't hear what he said mostly because it sounded like Sam Elliott. That guy needs to be a part of our MLB roundup.
He's great. I understand everything he's saying there. I also would not like to trade Brendan Donovan. I love that guy.
But you don't like trade. You don't get something good in return if you don't hate what you're trading away.
Yeah.
Like that's, and look, Brendan Donovan is a leader, but, and this isn't meant to be harsh. What has he led?
I think that's a little harsh. Like the same thing is true for like a Braden Shin prior to this year, right? Like,
yeah,
you always valued the leadership. So like, I've got to value. That can't be the only thing that I value, but it has some value.
I'm not like saying that he's not a good leader, but what I'm saying is the team isn't going anywhere. The team has been stuck in this position, and it's hard for me to believe that somebody who has incredible leadership skills, when the roster around him isn't good enough to compete, I can't sit here and be like, well, I don't want to give him up because he's a leader in our room. Yeah. You got to put a decent roster around it. Do I want to give him up? Absolutely not. But guess what? Other teams value what he has, which is why you might need to listen to trading him.
Yeah, he to me is the one that, like, he's my Stephen Kwan. I'm only listening if you're going to give me the Godfather offer.
Yeah. Let me make it clear. That's where I'm at as well. I'm not trading him just to trade Brendan Donovan. I'm trading him because the return could make my team better next year.
And he better get you an absolute haul. Newt, I'm like, hey, you don't really have a spot for Lars Nootbaar. You're clearly trying to transition Ivan Herrera into a left fielder. I don't understand where he plays, Lars Nootbaar. Like, for the rest of this season, much less for next year. He is in the exact spot that Harrison Bader was in, where you had transitioned Tommy Edman. I know everybody's like, oh, you got a second baseman in the outfield. No, you have a center fielder. Tommy Edman was awesome in the outfield. The Dodgers traded for him in part because he was more than capable to play out there. So they didn't have a spot for Harrison Bader. They were done with that experience, so they trade him. The same thing can be true right now for Lars Nootbaar, where, hey, I'm looking at my outfield configuration. Right now, you're behind Ivan Herrera, you're behind Alec Burleson, you're behind Brendan Donovan when we're playing him out there, because you might be behind Nolan Gorman right now, who we need to get some answers on, and he'll be playing second base. Jordan Walker is getting runway over you right now. Like, dude, we're running out of spots.
Well, I could say the same thing for Nolan Gorman. I mean, his name should be out there as well. Like, you're out of spots. With Weatherholt potentially being here next year and Arenado not going anywhere and having Donovan and having Wynn, why aren't we saying the same thing about Nolan Gorman right now?
Yeah, sure. He's another guy I'd be listening on. I don't think teams value him the way that they would value Lars Nootbaar. Newt, to me, is the one that makes the most sense to trade. He would be the one that I would pinpoint on. Not listening to him, to me, is weird. Not listening to Jojo Romero, to me, is really weird. If you don't want to listen on, I don't know, Kyle Leahy, I don't think you're going to get huge return for him, and he's so controllable for so long, and he might even be a starter for you down the road. Cool, I get that. You don't want to listen on Mason Wynn or Jordan Walker. Cool, no problem. Even Alec Burleson. Get it, makes sense. Newt and JoJo, those are the two that stand out to me where it's very confusing.
Yeah, not listening on them doesn't make sense. I agree with. I also, I wonder if they kind of hamstrung themselves by the way that they did this runway season to where now they are at the spot to, like you guys are saying. I mean, it's obvious, right? They have no spot for Lars Nootbaar, so if I'm a team, why am I giving you the value for Lars Nootbaar?
Fair point.
And I wonder if that has been some of it. Now, if they're not taking calls on it just point blank and period, that's ridiculous in my opinion. But if it is, hey, we did take calls, now we're not, we got nothing involved in those offers that we liked, it goes back to what they did to themselves. And it's the thing that they continue to do when you date back to like the Tyler O'Neill trade, which was they kept hamstringing themselves to where they got to a point where he had literally no value and they gave him up for a shot-in-the-dark reliever that didn't work. I wonder if some of that has occurred with Lars Nootbaar. They have no leverage on Newt. They can say we're going to hold on to him. Teams can point at them and go, okay, well, that's fine. We'll just talk to you again in the offseason when his value goes down again, because how is he playing when you clearly want Herrera in the outfield? You clearly want Walker in the outfield. You clearly want Scott playing center field. You're not going to play Newt in center field. You've proven you're not going to do that. Oh, by the way, you also have Alec Burleson that's going to get at bats. I think they have just made this very much handcuffing themselves to where they just have lost the value to as much as we are thinking on Lars Nootbaar.
He's Alex, that's T-Bone, I'm BK. We will give you guys some updates on where things stand at the deadline today. We'll run through some of the moves that have been made across Major League Baseball and give you our final thoughts on the Cardinals as the deadline day is today. It's coming up in a little more than 3 hours. We'll hit the rewind next here on 101 ESPN. Man, everybody's trying to upgrade their bullpen this time of the year. The Yankees just did exactly that. According to Geoff Passan, the Yankees are finalizing a deal to acquire closer David Bednar from the Pittsburgh Pirates. I have not seen anything on the return in this deal just yet, but Bednar has been one of the better closers in the game since he was sent down for that brief period of time in early April. Making $6 million this year in arbitration, has another year of control next season now for the New York Yankees. So a big move on the bullpen market goes down. David Bednar heading to the Yankees. We'll see if the Cardinals are able to get anything more done. Phil Maton is expected to be moved by the end of the day today. The anticipation is there won't be a whole lot else that is done. According to Katie Wu, we'll see on JoJo Romero. We'll see if they maybe change their stance on any of the controllable players. Alex, when you look at what has been done thus far, how would you overall, let's zoom out away from the Cardinals for a second, 10,000-foot view as a baseball fan. How would you assess this year's trade deadline? Has it been enjoyable for you to watch?
It's been pretty exciting. I mean, specifically last night where it just felt like it started with Durant and then it just went in waves from there all the way up until midnight. And then today, we saw the big name get moved, like I mentioned yesterday, that you didn't expect to get moved, and Mason Miller, and he does get moved. You've seen teams load up, which I think is going to make this playoff race that much more fascinating, specifically in the National League right now with the Phillies and Mets just becoming juggernauts. I think this has been a win of a deadline with still potentially bigger moves to come. So, yeah, I mean, it's been exciting. I was worried that we weren't going to see anything other than just relievers get moved, but now you're starting to see some bigger things get traded away, which makes things that much more appealing.
T-Bone, why do you think that's happening? Because it does seem as though this is a much more active trade deadline than we've seen in recent years. I mean, even if you're just looking at top 100 prospects, last year there were 0 that were moved. This year we just saw the number 3 prospect in baseball moved for Mason Miller, and we've seen other top 100 guys go change hands. What do you think is leading to this? Why is it so active?
My theory on it is, the one thing we always hear when we talk with anybody about like a month out from the deadline, everybody says, well, it's a seller's market. And I've always looked at you guys go, well, then what the hell does a buyer's market look like? I think it's this.
Last year, I think it was a buyer's market.
I think this year is what I would call a buyer's market.
Well, the Cardinals bought last year was a buyer's market.
The reason I would say that it's a buyer's market this year is because there's really 6 teams buying, and there are a lot of teams selling. Because the Cleveland Guardians, we talked about earlier,
but prices
they're
aren't
2.5
low.
out.
Because a buyer's market would typically be dictated by the prices being lower than normal.
Well, I think the thing that's changed this year is relief market has gone ablaze. Like, typically we hear, oh, Mason Miller's available with 4 years of control. And I go, oh, what the hell is this report? Like, typically teams don't make that move. Something's changed across baseball, and I don't know what it is, because Durant, as Alex mentioned, traded with like 3 years of control. Mason Miller has 4 years of control. Bednar's under contract still. He's not a free agent at the end of the year, I don't believe.
Bednar has 1 more year.
Yeah, so that's different. That typically does not happen. It is typically like the Cardinals where it's, hey, Helsley's a pending free agent. Of course, this guy will get moved. But the reason that I would call it a buyer's market is because typically these teams that sit on the fence, like the Guardians, as we mentioned, 2.5 games back, that is not hard to make up in the final 2 months of the season. They have come out screaming that they are sellers. The Tampa Bay Rays have come out 3 games back and said, hey, we are sellers. The only teams that are buying in the National League are the 6 that are in the playoff spot, and that's if I'm being nice to the Brewers and calling them buyers right now. They've done nothing. And the Cincinnati Reds as the one team on the outside that might be buying.
Buy was mostly
marginal.
It was Zach Littell, who I think has control, if I'm not mistaken. And their other buy was Brian Hayes, who's under contract for like 5 years. So that's a piece that is now, according to them, a part of their core based on their actions.
Yeah, so I think it is just that there are a bunch of sellers this year to where there are more pieces available that I think it has made this exciting because all these teams are loading up. This is not just a typical deadline where you see one team that kind of pushes the chips in. These are multiple teams that are pushing big. I mean, there's probably 5 teams I would look at right now that could probably win the World Series based on what they've done. I don't think I can typically say that by the time we get done with the deadline.
I think there's 4 in the National League that could win it. Padres, Dodgers, Phillies, and Mets.
I think some would throw the Brewers and the Cubs in there. I agree with you. That would be my list.
I could put the Cubs in there, but I think the Cubs need to make a move. I'm not putting the Brewers in there.
Yeah, I'm not putting the Brewers in there until they make a move.
I just think the National League is more dangerous than the American League right now.
I agree. I also feel like it's more open than people expected it to be. At least I speak for myself. It's more open than I thought it would be because I thought the Dodgers would be world beaters. They have not been that. Their pitching hasn't been good enough because it's been hurt for the most part. Also, Mookie Betts is just not what I expected him to be this year. He had that weird illness early on in the season and just hasn't been the same ever since. as a hitter. Now, we're going to get to October, and I'm going to look at Mookie Betts at the plate, and I'm going to say, that guy's amazing. I totally believe that he's going to get a big hit here. So they're still a really good team, don't get me wrong, and they could absolutely win the World Series this year. It doesn't feel as overwhelming as it did in April. So Dodgers, Padres, Mets, Phillies, I agree, could win it. I think the Astros could win it. I think the Mariners could win it. I think the Tigers could win it. I think the Blue Jays could win it. Those are 8 teams that I just mentioned. That's a bigger field than I would typically expect at this time of the year. So I think there's some of that. The other thing, T-Bone, you mentioned the controllable relievers that are getting moved and how that's up to the ante on the price. Think about the guys that are getting traded and where they're going. Phillies, Dave Dombrowski. Padres, Mason Miller. Yankees, total desperation move. This team has got to win. Like, there was pressure over the last couple of years for the Yankees to capitalize. Now look at the American League. That team has got to capitalize on their opportunity right now. So I think what you're seeing really is Dave Dombrowski's like, give me everything, which is what he always does. AJ Preller was like, hey, there's a dude that throws 105 over there. Let's go ahead and get him. He's got like how many years of control? I give up whatever it takes. So I think some of this is the players in the market this year are highly motivated to go after it. And the players in the market are also the teams that are most likely to get super aggressive.
So what you're saying is aggressive and creativity typically leads to winning seasons.
Yes, and also I think so many teams operate the same nowadays, where they are conservative, they've got their models, they go by their approach of, hey, this is what the actuarial tables tell us that we should be doing right now. Here's our percentage of getting into the playoffs. Here's our percentage of winning the World Series. Everybody's got basically the same chance once you get in. It's a crapshoot, right? So many teams operate that way. I think the inefficiency now, the way that it used to be with Moneyball, where it was, hey, on-base percentage, nobody's valuing it, we should. I think the modern day inefficiency is what Dombrowski does. It's the old school baseball mind that says, bleep prospects. Go get players. Go get me dudes that are studs at the major league level. I think that is now zigging while everybody else zags. I think there's value in it today.
And kind of to that point of like being different, I think Minnesota is what set off this fire sale of controllable relievers, right? I think they read the market properly and said, dude, bullpen arms are a volatile industry. Yeah, we'll trade Duran if you give us a good package. Because I believe the A's were probably, yeah, we might do it. We'll listen to what your offer is.
It was like a week ago, I think they said that.
And then the moment Duran got traded, it changed. The Pirates were like, yeah, take Bednar. Yeah, what do you got? What do you got? We'll do it. Same with Miller. A's finally said, yeah, we'll do it. Yeah, and then Preller was like, oh, yeah, this is my cup of tea.
Padres just acquired a catcher. Freddie Fermin has been traded to the Padres. He's a mediocre hitting catcher from the Kansas City Royals, but he's a catcher nonetheless. They needed a catcher desperately. They gave up their number 5 starter, Ryan Bergert, for Freddie Fermin.
Cardinals have like 5 catchers.
That's true.
Damn it.
I wonder if they're not going to trade Cease then if they just gave up a...
No, I think it's Preller, so we all know.
Maybe they get Sandy Alcantara.
Preller said,
AJ, please.
I think it was Heyman that said, like, Preller said, like, yeah, we'll keep these guys. We'll go on a run with them. We don't have to trade.
Maton will be dealt. We all agree with that. Do you guys think they make any other moves?
No.
I think they'll move JoJo.
I have to believe they'll move JoJo. We will break that down coming up at 6 o'clock. Redbird Report live on 101 ESPN and on YouTube at 6 o'clock tonight. We'll talk to you guys then. Alex out tomorrow. T-Bone will be in. I think we might have Ollie Marmol. We'll talk about that tomorrow at 11 a.m. Fastlane next here on 101 ESPN.